So boom, half a century back my life started inside a dragon egg, no cap. Seriously, you heard that right. An actual egg, 'cause I'm some guy from another realm who somehow got reincarnated as a baby dragon, and not just your run-of-the-mill beast, either. I turned out to be a hybrid of gold and red dragon blood, which is basically giving off the exact energy of an angel, and a demon spawning a kid when they really shouldn't have hooked up. My red dragon birth giver was likely some ruthless, high-tier evil queen who tossed my shell aside like yesterday's trash. Meanwhile, my gold dragon pops probably got played, utterly seduced, or just caught on a seriously terrible night. Neither of them ever crossed my path, so I just let my wild imagination fill in all the blanks. Trust me, the lore practically writes itself at this point. Surviving solo as a hatchling sounds like absolute pain. Not gonna lie though, I totally caught a lucky break. Thanks to this wild cheat code ability that lets me soak up moonlight after dark and convert it straight into pure magic juice, which makes rare flora skyrocket in growth overnight. So I just farmed legendary plants and binged like a madman, chomping down, leveling up, rinse and repeat. Before I even processed it, I hit full adult size while technically still being in my teenager era. We talking about a true life speedrun any percent, baby. Nowadays, I'm sitting pretty as a legendary tier beast, ruling the apex predator status, and since my scales shine gold, I just rep myself everywhere as a pure gold dragon, and completely ghost the fact that I've got red blood too. It's giving total shady criminal uncle vibes, where you just never mention him at family functions. Playing off the gold dragon brand is way more clutch anyway. Every single place I roll up, the good guys instantly roll out the red carpet with free meals, complimentary lodging, and endless good vibes. Roll up as a red dragon instead, and you're met with a welcoming committee of sharp blades and blazing fireballs. So what's a max-level legendary dragon to do for kicks? Casually become a feudal lord in a mortal kingdom, duh. Naturally, a bunch of gold and silver dragons pull this off. They mask themselves with human forms, lock down some territory, and LARP as landlords. Some veteran dragons even went ahead and married princesses just to chill on literal mountains of treasure while doing absolutely zero work. That exact lifestyle spoke directly to my soul. Stepping foot into the Alpha Kingdom was my first move before setting up shop out in Riverside territory, deep up north, right next to the Orc Empire territory. Totally sketchy, low-key risky. Yet that is the whole vibe here. Provided you got the juice, you can straight up snatch land from the orcs, and maybe draft a few greenskins to do construction. Word is bond, I am gonna treat them just like my farm machinery, with absolute care, and I even bypass the middlemen to get my paperwork squared away by the king himself. Dealing with petty nobles looking to flex on the new guy is a complete waste of time. A royal stamp of approval was handed right to me by the monarch, along with 500 troops acting as a welcome package. Those soldiers are completely clueless right now, but simply by loitering around my presence, my dragon aura is slowly mutating them into half-dragons, leaving them riding for me and nobody else. It basically functions like a passive Wi-Fi signal, except instead of web access, they pull up scales and ride-or-die loyalty. Whenever I want to fast-track this process, slapping them with some watered-down dragon blood does the trick. Customer satisfaction is majorly locked in, now shifting focus to my squad of travel buddies. I am rolling with 3 elf girls tagging along behind me. They are not your basic elves though, let me tell you. They are actual nature spirits spawned from magical bugs, thriving inside plants. One of them, named Tisna, is this tiny green twin-tailed cutie who literally passed out on my shoulder during the trip. The interior of the carriage was reeking of fresh florals mixed with questionable life choices, while my master plan involves leveraging my moonlight plant juice to mass-produce magical crops, effortlessly harnessing my dragon aura to forge an army of hyperloyal half-dragon super soldiers, and eventually carving out my very own duchy. Suffering and grinding is totally not my aesthetic here. I am strictly trying to live that elite lord lifestyle. Wine, women, and world domination, precisely in that sequence. Certain dragons fantasize about hoarding gold, whereas me, I am dreaming about cat girls, fox girls, lady knights, and powerful sorceresses. What can I even say when it comes to romance? I am definitely taking after my red dragon mother. Like mother, like son, though my aesthetic is honestly way cleaner, meaning those 3 elf chicks trailing my every move aren't standard nature sprites anymore, not by a long shot. They're basically total dragon elves. Now what happens when a regular nature spirit goes up a level, while soaking in all my intense dragon aura? Instead of turning into some lame support class elf lord, they went completely wild in combat mode. Picture pint-sized magical girls fused with actual fire-breathing dragons. Every single one of them is a peak tier 8 powerhouse who could deadpan backhand a sky knight any day of the week. And the absolute best part, Tisna can shift into a massive, full-scale golden dragon. 50 meters of blinding golden scales gleaming in the sun, complete with suffocating dragon pressure, and the whole 9 yards. She looks totally indistinguishable from a legitimate gold dragon. So now me, a literal legendary gold dragon flying incognito, am casually chilling on the back of a fake gold dragon, just pretending to be a basic dragon rider. The irony is so thick, you could practically cut it with a knife. We soared through the skies to check out the local turf. Turns out the neighborhood orc demographic is mostly jackal men. Minotaurs and centaurs, where the minotaurs are born brawlers. Massive, beefy, brainless, and permanently pissed off. While the centaurs make natural cavalry units who live for raids. And the jackal men are just shady little nocturnal pests, who will low-key stalk you forever once they lock on. My master plan for recruitment is super straightforward. Minotaurs and centaurs are premium-grade ox and horse labor forces. I'm heading out to the open grasslands to have a nice, chill chat about their employment terms, and if our peaceful negotiation somehow goes south well, I happen to be low-key lethal with my bare hands too. The jackal men, on the other hand, those guys, are getting wiped out completely. You literally cannot put a jackal man on a farm. They'll just devour the harvests and stab the other workers in the back. While we were cruising high up in the clouds, Tisna suddenly caught sight of something intriguing: a sketchy crew of human smugglers trading goods with orcs down on the plains. They were actively swapping bags of grain and deadly weapons for native grassland wares. And right behind that shady orc trading squad sat dozens of tied-up cat girls, actual cat girls, half human, half feline hybrids, and 100% hyped up by wealthy nobles everywhere. A shady black market of smugglers is constantly active here, alongside ruthless slave catchers, who constantly sneak into the open grasslands to snatch victims, even though most of those reckless raids just turn them into monster snacks. Tisna stepped up asking if she should take care of it, but I quickly shut her down, saying no, because this easy target was totally mine, seeing that I am officially a legitimate nobleman of the Alpha Kingdom now. Intercepting dangerous smugglers who traffic weapons directly to orcs isn't highway robbery at all, since it is just my civic duty, making me feel like an absolute hero as I blinked right above them and utterly nuked the entire group with a barrage of arcane missiles, taking out the ringleaders and every armed orc in about 3 seconds flat, leaving the remaining 200 mercenaries and the terrified cat girls completely as my legal war spoils. So big congratulations are definitely in order for me. Tisna landed softly right beside me with a slight blush and remarked that I was getting seriously cracked at this witchcraft. Okay, fair enough. This wasn't exactly my first rodeo pulling off the classic ambush the bad guys and loot their gear routine. My entire personal net worth was literally built on this exact business model. While stuffy gold dragons call it righteous intervention, I prefer to call it fishing with an official badge and right. While she was dropping those compliments, Tisna was already stripping the bodies clean like an absolute pro. That's totally my girl. Later that night back at camp, a stressed royal architect nervously spread his detailed blueprints across my wooden table, since I had hired him to design a brand new city for my territory. The poor guy looked like he had seen a ghost, probably, because most fresh lords out in the brutal frozen north only ever ask for a tiny dirt fort, whereas here I was ordering a massive metropolis like I was just ordering takeout on an app. So the architect stared at my city blueprints again and looked like he was about to pass out. After I requested a sprawling city 2 kilometers wide on every side encircled by towering 18-meter defensive walls, the poor man looked ready to mentally draft his own last will and testament. He kept thinking that savage orcs raid every single harvest season, and we don't even have a single mud hut built yet. While this absolute lunatic is demanding a massive walled city, though here is the funny part: the architect didn't know that I keep a secret construction crew up my sleeve, allowing me to instantly summon an entire legion of tree people, with every single one towering over 10 meters tall and fully capable of tossing multi-ton boulders around like they were bouncy beach balls. Building walls for them is basically stacking blocks like child's play, no cap. And when it comes to raw building supplies, my dragon elf girls just cast a spell that turns mud into stone. So the whole operation runs as soldiers dig dirt, shape it into brick molds, elf girls zap it into solid rock. Tree giants stack it up. It's like an assembly line, designed by a wizard who played too much Minecraft. Underneath the dim moonlight, Tisna curled up on my lap asking if this place would really be our home. She was born from a golden vein blood orchid, a super rare plant I accidentally created back when I was a baby dragon just trying to feed myself. I've been using my moonlight juice on regular blood orchids, and one day the flowers evolved and got golden veins on their petals. Those upgraded flowers are basically dragon steroids. Other dragons need a full day to digest one. I do it in 30 minutes. My stomach is built different, FR. Within months of hatching, I was already enormous, and Tisna appeared during that growth spurt, so she's been with me since the very beginning. Anyway, things got cozy in the tent. Let's just say Tisna made a surprised little squeak, wrapped herself around me like a koala, and we'll leave the rest to your imagination. Meanwhile, outside, my guard, Captain Stahl, was drilling the 500 soldiers on night breathing techniques. Their natural talent is garbage right now, low-key, but I've got golden vein blood orchids coming out of my ears. Those flowers boost strength, physical toughness, and the speed you accumulate battle energy. Once these guys all become official knights, they'll each work as hard as a whole ox. And in the north, soldiers aren't just fighters, they're also farmers. Hundreds of night-level soldiers tilling fields. That's basically having a tractor fleet in a medieval world, and once they're strong enough, we go borrow some minotaurs from near. Minotaurs are bulls, bulls are labor. During peacetime they plow, during wartime they fight. Such an insanely high cost-performance ratio. A business plan seriously needs to be written by me. Stepping out of my tent the following morning, I suddenly got completely swarmed by over 20 wheat and barley spirits. These little guys are the spirit bugs gifted by the king himself, though they aren't even bugs anymore at this point, having fed them moonlight juice on their very first night. With me, every single one of them evolved right into a greater spirit. Normally, you would expect maybe 1 out of 100 bugs to pull that off. Meanwhile, I totally speedrun evolution for over 20 in a single evening. These greater spirits are absolute cuties, who have all formed contracts with me and treat me like their absolute favorite human in the entire universe. Before I could even process what was happening, the fastest one literally kissed my cheek, giving me zero time to react. They were all aggressively fighting for my attention. And honestly, if Tisna hadn't been standing right there radiating pure touch him and die energy, I totally would have been buried under a massive pile of clingy wheat fairies right then and there. Telling them I needed help turning muddy bricks into solid stone made their eyes light up instantly, like I had just broken the news that Christmas came early. Their enthusiastic volunteering was so intense it honestly bordered on scary. One particularly hyper spirit even piped up with a suggestion that we go capture some orcs right this second. Ma'am, it is barely 7 in the morning, so let's save that energy. Each individual greater spirit matches the power of a 4th-tier May, armed with knowledge of nature magic and elemental magic, along with the ability to summon water and wind elementals to assist with labor or combat tasks. So yeah, I essentially run a magical construction company now staffed entirely by a crew of hyper-enthusiastic fairy girls. Once I finally got everyone organized and settled, a single oak seed was pulled out by me, then planted in the ground and drizzled with moonlight juice. Before my eyes, that seed exploded into a massive 30-meter-tall ancient tree, delivering a solid 1,000 years of growth in mere seconds flat. Now, with that tree having successfully developed its very own spark of consciousness, it was fully prepped for my next trick. The awakening spell is a piece of druid magic, capable of transforming a spiritually aware tree into a completely sentient walking and talking tree person. You heard that right. My very own construction workers are literally grown from seeds. Casting the awakening spell on the oak tree triggered a loud series of cracks and groans from the entire trunk, just like an old grandpa hoisting himself out of bed. That massive 30-meter tree quickly shrank down to 20 meters. It casually shed all its deadweight branches before morphing into the most insanely jacked wooden beast I'd ever laid eyes on. A weather-beaten face suddenly formed across the bark, giving off major, seen some serious stuff, vibes. Dropping right down to one knee, it blurted out, "Tribard greets the great master," even while kneeling on the dirt. This guy was still a solid 7 stories tall. I seriously had to crane my neck just to meet his gaze. Tribard is practically indestructible. 2, unless you happen to roll up with fire, there's honestly 0 a standard army can do to scratch him. Drop him onto any battlefield, and he'll totally crush elite orc warriors into flat pancakes. We're talking artisanal hand-pressed orc pancakes here at Villa, and Emily were standing right beside me with their jaws completely dropped to the ground. They had definitely seen massive storm giants by the coast before, yet Tribard was somehow even bigger. These 2 powerhouse dragon elf girls who could solo most armies were staring up at my custom tree like wide-eyed kids at a natural history museum. Just one single tree man wasn't going to cut it, though. No way. I was sitting on nearly 2,000 drops of precious moonlight juice, safely hoarded from a full 50 years of nightly harvesting. Each individual tree man takes 5 drops and 1 seed to build, so I totally went on a massive summoning spree. Roughly 30 minutes later, I found myself standing face-to-face with 50 giant tree people, featuring 10 oak tree men just like Tribard, alongside 40 black iron tree men. Those black iron variants are a bit shorter in height, but built like absolute refrigerators forged from steel hardwood. Down across the southern continent, folks normally use black iron wood for heavy shields and wagon wheels, mainly because it functions as natural, heavy-duty armor plating. The massive catch here is that these guys have 0 magical talent whatsoever. They woke up to find their only stat upgrade was skin that got way harder. That's literally it, making them the ultimate pure tanks of the treeman world. Zero spells and zero nature powers to speak of just absolute units, whose entire purpose is to absorb damage and punch stuff. The lead architect caught sight of my brand new tree army and nearly passed out. His frail legs were trembling so violently, I honestly thought he might vibrate right through the floorboards. When I casually informed him that Tree Bard would act as his construction foreman, he could barely stammer out a terrified "A." "Are you kidding me, my lord?" I christened this fresh settlement Durham. Its perimeter would be built like an absolute fortress, standing 18 meters high and 10 meters thick. You could literally ride horses right across the top of them. The architect had initially assumed I was completely losing my mind for wanting this. Now he was standing there watching tree men casually pick up 3-meter stone blocks weighing a massive 20,000 pounds, as if they were just carrying lightweight grocery bags. I could practically watch his entire brain recalculating everything on the spot. He thought he knew about standard construction timelines. By the afternoon, the architect had mapped out the wall positions using gray powder, while Tisna guided the greater spirits inward to flat and compact the dirt using advanced earth-shaping magic. Foundation work that would typically take months to finish was done by dinner, so tomorrow we start stacking walls. Man, this whole operation is running like a well-oiled machine, staffed entirely by magical creatures who absolutely adore me. The architect just stood frozen in place watching tree men lift impossible boulders effortlessly, fairies turn thick mud into solid granite, and his entire understanding of civil engineering collapse in real time. I bet he's going to need some therapy. The only single downside he managed to notice was that tree men walk kind of slow. Yeah, buddy. That is just the minor trade-off for having a 20-meter-tall invincible lumberjack, so I think we will easily manage. Come that evening, Tisna curled right up against me like a cozy koala once more. Being a nature spirit, she has never once been afraid of me despite knowing fully well I am a legendary gold dragon. To her perspective, all living things are completely equal. It is honestly low-key nice having someone who treats you totally normally, when everyone else is either shaking in absolute terror or completely worshipping you. I let her know I would be heading off to Vern Fortress tomorrow, which serves as the capital of the province. It is recognized as the biggest city in the flowing Cloud province, and most importantly, it features a bustling slave market. I need a workforce badly, and I need them right away. Tisno would take charge of managing the territory while I go shopping. It is high time to buy some labor and build an empire. Employee orientation is officially kicking off next week. Buckle up, because I'm about to break down the brutal economics of ruling as a northern frontier lord. Spoiler alert, the financial math is an absolute trash fire. The Alpha Kingdom throws these fancy perks your way like generous development schemes and tax exemptions, alongside population grants and support packages. Sure, it reads great on paper, but in reality, those tax breaks literally mean squat when your net income is sitting at zero. Honestly, it feels just like getting a coupon for a trendy restaurant that doesn't even exist yet. Let's be real, the whole kingdom is completely broke, ranking dead last among all human realms in terms of cold hard cash. While the southern 17 provinces are doing okay, all that money gets sucked right out of the treasury to fund defenses against the endless yearly orc invasions. It is basically like trying to fill up a massive bathtub while the drain is wide open and a feral boar is gnawing straight through the pipes. So if I want actual workers, I'm footing the bill myself. The slave market over at Vern Fortress. Here I come. I step out into the crisp air with an escort of 200 loyal guards. Since these guys already chugged my diluted dragon blood, they've got subtle, shimmering dragon scales sprouting across their forearms, chests, and thighs hidden beneath their heavy plate armor. Casual observers would never notice, but they're secretly walking around flexing official night-tier strength right now. A 200-kilometer march is literally just a light morning jog for this squad. I even cast a group speed buff on them because, honestly, I had zero interest in wasting the whole day dragging my feet on the road. A legendary dragon has places to be and business to handle. The real logistical nightmare isn't getting there. It's getting back home while shepherding thousands of fragile peasant slaves who might actually drop dead from a long hike. Whatever, that is officially a tomorrow problem. Vern Fortress is perched right on the picturesque shores of Lake Vern, which is a massive inland body of water hooked up to a major continental river. It's a gorgeous location that could easily pass for paradise if it weren't unluckily built next door to an entire empire of bloodthirsty, war-crazed beast folks. Management of the entire stronghold falls to the Halraven family, a prominent marquis house led currently by Marquise Halraven herself, a formidable woman who also pulls double duty as the provincial governor. Her dynasty holds legitimate, undisputed power out here, boasting a dedicated knight order composed entirely of their own blood relatives, backed up by 2 elite standing legions. And yet somehow it's still not enough. Here is the harsh reality about fighting orcs. You essentially lose even when you secure a victory. Forging even a single elite human soldier demands years of rigorous training and absolute mountains of gold. All it takes is one lucky wild boar man to end a life, bro. Equipped simply with a pointy stick. And believe me, wild boar men reproduce at the absolute speed of actual pigs, yielding a single litter every year with 4 or 5 piglets. Each they blossom into fully grown combat-ready adults in just 3 to 4 years. When food is plentiful, they seriously pump out 2 litters annually, reigning as the planet's most aggressive, self-replicating army, though they are honestly dumb as rocks, incapable of mining or forging their own weapons, while constantly scrapping with each other, yet sheer numbers totally make up for everything. With every single harvest season, swarms of them migrate south searching desperately for food, and the cycle never ends. Wipe them all out this year. Congratulations, because an identical horde spawns right back next year. It is totally like fighting a lawn. You can mow it down completely, but it keeps growing back, and that is merely the raiding season. Because when the Orc Empire officially declares total war, they deploy millions featuring heavy hitters like massive behemoths and towering bear men, while the wild boar men are reduced to mere cannon fodder, charging fortress walls by the 100,000 while hauling homemade siege ladders decades ago. Even Vern Fortress fell during a full-scale invasion despite being packed with heavy garrisons and magical crystal cannons, meaning the Alpha Kingdom only survived because the Human Council dispatched urgent reinforcements. Without that critical backup, the kingdom would have been chewed all the way down to just its central and southern provinces. So yeah, Marquise Horovin deals with a permanent migraine, as her baseline strategy is basically harvesting crops as fast as humanly possible, stuffing civilians safely into fortresses, and praying hard, seeing that open field battles against orcs are totally off the table. Because win or lose, you go completely bankrupt either way. Yet this is precisely where things got wild. Since while reviewing her daily correspondence, the Marquis stumbled upon a letter from the Kingdom of Rodland, located across the central continent, where apparently Rodland recently went to war with the Half-Elf Kingdom, conquered multiple provinces, and rounded up a massive number of half-elf civilians along with soldiers. And now, Rodland wants to offload them all as slaves across the world, meaning half-elves, you say? Now that definitely caught my attention. Standard farm hands get the job done just fine, yet half-elves are packing way more brains, brilliant reflexes, and a much longer lifespan. Plus some are low-key battle-tested warriors. Looks like my little shopping spree just hit the jackpot, guys. Let me drop the lore real quick on why half-elf captives suddenly cost less than clearance rack groceries. Over on the central continent, the realm of Rodland started beefing with the half-elf kingdom, overran a handful of their provinces, and ended up swimming in a massive sea of half-elf prisoners. Now they've got a total headache, because housing thousands of furious half-elves in your backyard is basically like stacking dynamite right next to a blazing campfire. If another war happens to pop off, those captives instantly flip into enemy reinforcements overnight. And should the half-elf kingdom pull off a rescue mission, it's a free army refund, which made Rodland's king declare, ship every last one of them as far away as humanly possible. Offloading them to neighboring kingdoms is a no-go, since those shady neighbors would quietly flip-flop and sell the half-elves right back to their original home for a fat profit while completely sabotaging Rodland's expansion plans. Everyone over there is literally playing 4D chess. So Rodland crammed the half-elves onto cargo ships and banished them to the most distant places imaginable, including our very own peaceful Alpha Kingdom. Their asking price is basically a total steal. Please just take them off our hands for 3 gold coins a head. Normal half-elf slaves usually command dozens of heavy gold coins, making this find feel like scoring luxury designer sneakers at a local thrift shop. Rodland's nobles are simply dying to cover their shipping expenses, and if they can't even manage that, they'd probably settle for a firm handshake and a polite thank you card. Marquise Halraven skimmed through the proposal letter and felt a twinge of temptation, yet she ultimately passed. Such a smart woman. Those half-elves just watched humans steal their ancestral homeland, so from their perspective, every single human looks identical. Whether it's Rodland or the Alpha Kingdom, it makes zero difference. We are all part of the exact same species that wrecked their lives. Importing thousands of freshly traumatized, vengeance-driven individuals and forcing them to toil in your agricultural fields is essentially asking for a bloody rebellion right alongside every harvest season anyway. 48 hours later, I finally rolled up to Vern Fortress accompanied by my trusty squad of 200 guards. Pushing through a brutal 200-kilometer forced march wearing heavy armor basically left them totally drained. So even with those half-dragon upgrades, desperately needing a quick nap was completely fair. First stop on the agenda, hitting the governor's office to officially log my identity, something most frontier knights tend to knock out before ever stepping foot in their territory. I ran it completely backward just because I'm built different. Rolling up this late in the game normally invites a ton of hassle from sleazy bureaucrats hunting for bribes, though. The second that registration officer spotted the king's actual personal seal stamped on my papers, that snide remark he was cooking up instantly vanished mid-breath, magically replaced on the spot by a slippery, fake-ass smile. He slammed a special mark right onto my paperwork, which basically flashes a giant warning to every other official in the building. Don't even think about messing with this one. Without that exact mark, ordinary frontier knights get forced to grease palms just to collect the basic supplies the crown promised them. Such a wholesome system that really pumps up your faith in top-tier government efficiency. Stepping back outside into the glaring daylight, I instantly regretted possessing fully functional nostrils. Every inch of the main street lay completely blanketed in layers of human and animal filth, making actual work camps look spotless by comparison. Trailing right behind me, Emily and Avila wore expressions of pure disgust, their cute little noses scrunched up tight like they had just bitten straight into something rotten. I mentally locked down a note for when I finally get back to Durham. The architect is definitely adding proper public toilets to the city plan because my future city is never gonna smell like the inside of a barn. Next up was the local slave market, which turned out to be a major letdown. Even though Vern Fortress is hyped up as the biggest city across the entire province, the market stalls sat half empty because practically nobody voluntarily moves to develop land sitting right on the literal border of Orc territory. All 9 northern provinces hand out plenty of raw frontier opportunities, yet sane people naturally pick the ones not sharing a fence with millions of angry pigmen. Right as I rounded a shady corner, though, rows upon rows of half-elf slaves suddenly came into view, staring ahead with entirely vacant expressions caught in that glazed, empty daze typical of souls stripped of everything, and the asking price sits at just 3 gold coins. A mere 3 gold coins for a half-elf. That's standard human slave pricing for a premium inventory item, honestly. This is the absolute steal of the century. While the Marquis might be way too chicken to buy me, I am actually an ancient mythical dragon playing human lord capable of brainwashing people into absolute loyalty, simply through a low-key passive or. Potential mutiny isn't really a headache to deal with when your employees are low-key morphing into dragonkin fanatics, whether they want to or not. Time to hit the shops and buy in bulk. Let me break down my financial situation for you. I'm totally loaded. Literally swimming in gold bars back when other baby dragons were still crying for mommy to hand them dinner. I was already cruising around the size of a bus, tracking down my own meals, and raiding evil syndicates just for pocket chain. By the time I reached my teenage years in dragon decades, over 1 million gold coins were safely stashed away by me courtesy of a career redistributing wealth from bad guys' black market bosses. Shady underground cults and criminal masterminds if you were wicked, and hoarders of loot. I was basically your direct audit straight from heaven. The only major setback happened when I accidentally snacked on too many high-tier treasures and crashed into a 20-year food coma right while breaking through to legendary rank, just passed out cold inside a damp cave for 2 whole decades. Just picture the world's most expensive nap. When I finally came to my investments, hadn't grown an inch. Mostly because I don't even do investments, I'm a dragon. I just sit on a giant pile anyway. My savings could easily buy over 500,000 human slaves and even more half-elves. But here is the catch. My authentic red dragon blood makes parting with currency, physically agonizing every single gold coin, leaving my hoard feels like pulling out a living tooth. I'd much rather handle business the traditional dragon way, snatch whatever I want, and call it divine justice. So I strolled right into the shady slave market, and the manager locked eyes with me instantly. Not that I can blame him. I totally stick out here rocking this human form as an epic gold dragon. I totally radiate this low-key vibe of I'm way out of your league. And you know it, plus in this realm, where most aristocrats give off major barnyard disaster energy, I'm suspiciously fresh out of the shower. Basic hygiene is apparently such a flex here that smelling clean is basically a whole status symbol, taking one look at my custom magic drip outfit, costing tens of thousands of gold all by itself. The manager's sales instincts went totally buck wild. The poor guy had been having a rough-ass week. The half-elf slaves were going for dirt cheap 3 gold coins a pop, yet absolutely nobody was buying. Why? Because whenever a nosy noble wandered over to browse around, those half-elves would ditch looking like totally crushed refugees and start giving off main character energy, like memorizing the noble's face for some serious future payback. Those dead hollow stares would suddenly fill with pure lethal intent. The nobles would scope out those total "I will totally end your life while you sleep" vibes and straight up sprint to the human section. Instead, only the pretty female half-elves were actually moving. Everything else was basically dead. Inventory bundle deals were even tried out by the manager. Grab 300 peasants get a noble lady, and a female knight thrown in free. Yet even medieval shoppers low-key hate bundled sales. Evidently, he gave me the VIP walkthrough treatment, escorting me into the back courtyard, housing their prime inventory of skilled blacksmiths, carpenters, weavers, and tailors, alongside scribes, brewers, and leather workers. Literally every trade a fresh territory could possibly need. It felt like an instant settlement starter. Pack my inner empire builder brain was screaming cop the whole lot, while my greedy dragon instincts were shouting way louder. Actually spend money on purpose. Standing right there, I had a total mental breakdown. On one side, these half-elves are an absolute steal, and exactly what my region requires. On the flip side, paying actual cash for things feels spiritually illegal to me. I'm a dragon, we don't do retail. Suddenly, a brilliant stroke of genius hit me out of nowhere. Why waste time haggling with the low-level staff when negotiating directly with the big boss was an option? As a legendary gold dragon, my personal friendship alone holds far more value than this entire shipment of enslaved people. Do you have any idea what it actually means to have a legendary gold dragon owe you a favor? Monarchs would gladly sell their own mothers just to secure that kind of connection. Turning to the manager, I dropped the line, "Take me straight to your master." It was time to test if my iconic face carried more weight than my wallet. Let the real negotiation commence right here. And so I strode into talks with Count Snow, a court noble hailing from Rodland who functions basically as a glorified royal errand boy with a fancy title. His manager had brought him out, leaving the Count initially quite frustrated because the manager couldn't answer even basic questions, like how many heads this guy actually wanted to buy. Totally valid complaint, honestly. Yet the very second Snow laid eyes on me, his irritation vanished into thin air without a trace. My inherent dragon aura tends to have that exact effect on mortals. After exchanging a few polite pleasantries, he inquired how many half-elves I was looking to acquire. Holding up 5 fingers, I stated, 50,000. His pupils instantly did that classic anime shrinking routine. 50,000 half-elves with skilled craftsmen included, that easily hits roughly 200,000 gold coins. It was a monster order, and that's when he started sweating bullets. Offloading 50,000 furious, vengeance-driven half-elves to a single buyer, if they all staged a simultaneous uprising deep in Alpha Kingdom territory, it would spell absolute catastrophe. And you can easily guess whose head would roll for it. He'd be designated the ultimate scapegoat faster than you could even spell diplomatic incident. With practiced politeness, he suggested I might lack enough soldiers to keep such a massive crowd of hostile slaves under control. Fair concern, but completely the wrong customer. Leaning back comfortably against the plush cushions, I crossed my arms and let my human facade slip just a fraction. My eyes morphed from standard round pupils into vertical golden slits, while fine golden scales crept visibly across my cheekbones. Then I released a concentrated pulse of pure, suffocating dragon pressure. You know, that classic vibe of "I am the apex predator here, and you are literally just a light snack." Instant chaos hit Snow like a cold shock as freezing terror cascaded straight down his spine in a flash. Cold sweat completely drenched his fancy tailored threads, while his grip turned his knuckles ghost white. And a Tier 8 Sky Knight, who served as his bodyguard, mind you holding one of the absolute strongest ranks, burst into the room to shield his boss, only to instantly buckle and drop to his knees. Gasping desperately like a stranded fish on land, this elite powerhouse capable of soloing a small army was kneeling there wishing he could just vanish. Fighting back wasn't even an option for him. That concept became entirely impossible under the crushing weight of my aura. After a few seconds, I cut it off, just a casual teaser from a legendary gold dragon. Snow was trembling violently like a leaf in a hurricane, yet I genuinely respect this dude's survival instincts. He bounced back in record time and switched straight into peak customer service mode. "Your Excellency, please buy as many as you want. And to make up for my terrible, unforgivable rudeness, everything is half off today. Plus, I've got a special parting gift for you, half price, just because I flashed my dragon eyes to keep some rebellious slaves in check." And this guy willingly slashed his whole inventory by 50%. I didn't even have to break a sweat haggling this ranks as the absolute biggest W, since I looted that evil cult's secret vault. Snow was visibly thanking every deity he knew that I happened to be a gold dragon since they're chill. Had I been a red dragon, instead this meetup would have ended with a blazing fire, and 0 survivors left standing. He knows it for a fact, I know it for a fact. And the whimpering Sky Knight on the floor definitely knows it, seeing as he was practically handing me a 50% discount. I figured why stop at my initial order. So I threw in several thousand half-elf warriors, bringing the final grand total to 54,000 half-elf slaves at half price the catch. Only 3,000 were sitting ready in Vernon Fortress right now, while the rest would need 40 days to ship over. And to sweeten the deal even more, snow threw in free delivery straight to my territory, complete door-to-door service. The guy was just so glad I didn't snack on him. He was basically ready to gift wrap everything. Stepping out of that massive building, the whole heist played out smoothly. A wide grin naturally spread across my face. 54,000 workers secured at half the price, bro. Shipping was totally free. I didn't even have to flex my full dragon form, keeping my cash intact. Honestly, that's low-key the absolute best feeling ever. Well, technically, I did spend a tiny bit of coin. Still, 50% off basically means it's practically free. My red dragon soul was living its best life. Right after I strolled out of that trade hall, Count Snow looked like he was about to shatter the sound barrier while frantically drafting a letter to his king. Handing over half off on 54,000 slaves had him sweating bullets, terrified he was about to get canned. Here's the funny part, though. He didn't just dump cheap slaves on clearance. He basically scored a legendary gold dragon's friendship on a mega discount. Naturally, his king wrote back hyped up, saying, "Absolute W job, you total absolute genius." Because apparently my elite friendship is worth way more than a few measly 100,000 gold coins. Not gonna lie, they aren't even wrong. Do you even realize how many random problems a legendary gold dragon homie can fix? All of them? The answer is literally every single one. Rodland's kingdom has some major main character ambitions, pushing hard to level up into a full-blown empire. They've been speedrunning territorial conquests, reforming policies, and stacking up their political power. Securing a legendary gold dragon in their contacts list. That is the ultimate power networking that actually makes empire building possible. So honestly, everyone won. They bagged a powerhouse ally. And I scored a dirt-cheap workforce, pure capitalism at its finest. Right after locking down the slave deal, I went shopping for some boring essentials. Heavy iron tools and massive grain supplies. With February already wrapping up, wheat planting season drops right at the end of March. I just adopted 54,000 hungry mouths to feed, meaning I've got to plow at least 100,000 acres of farmland fast, or I'll be stuck buying groceries for life. Thankfully, my 20-something wheat and barley greater spirits can turbocharge crop yields on command and keep the dirt completely fertile without crop rotation. Total medieval agricultural cheat codes, baby. My 200 elite guards stepped out front with the initial wave of 3,000 half-elves, shielded by armed trade company mercenaries. Stretching half a month out, the grueling journey back to Durham unfolded step by tedious step. Covering 200 kilometers, alongside thousands of sluggish civilians, dragged the pace way down. Navigating right through heavily infested orc territory made every single mile super risky. With 0 nearby ports and absolutely no shortcuts available, options were totally dead. Shaping up to be low-key the most stressful hiking trip in world history, this was wild. Naturally, a massive convoy of 3,000 half-elf slaves caught everyone off guard. Making their way out of the city surrounded by heavy guards, they stood out. Turning heads everywhere, the unexpected procession grabbed instant attention. Even Marquise Halraven herself couldn't ignore the strange movement down below. Scanning the alarming report with a heavy frown, she didn't waste a second. Dispatching her personal household butler straight to the trade company, she demanded answers. Confronted by her man, the traders gave up nothing except a vague statement. Describing the buyer as an exceptionally distinguished guest was all they offered. Refusing to leak any further details, they left her completely in the dark. Boiling over with pure rage, she found her hands completely tied by the secrecy. Honestly, keeping everyone guessing like this is my absolute favorite aesthetic. Putting the pieces together, her sharp-eyed intelligence network finally connected the dots. A mysterious new frontier knight had just surfaced out of nowhere. Carrying a completely blank background alongside the king's personal seal, he was heavily legit. Having registered his presence at the governor's office recently, he was officially on the radar. Firing off a strict command, she ordered her butler to haul me in immediately. Right now, shedding light on the big picture, let's look at Marquise Halraven's actual strategy here. Playing chess while everyone else plays checkers, she's low-key genius. Unlike those greedy, short-sighted nobles running things across neighboring continents, she thinks long-term. Swallowing up smaller lords' territories isn't her style of playing the game. Keeping frontier knights stationed around her borders is what she actually prefers. Serving as living meat shields, why would she want anything else? Charging southward every single year, brutal orc raiding parties attack. Hitting the frontier knights dead first, the savage hordes smash right into their lines. Exhausting their initial bloodlust before reaching Halraven's inner domain, the invaders slow down. Arriving either completely full or totally worn out, they pose zero threat. Even if they manage to keep their momentum, those frontline knights step up. Buying crucial time for Hallraven to harvest crops safely, they hold the line. Locking down heavy fortresses securely, her people stay fully protected. Establishing a base in her territory makes every single frontier knight a VIP asset. Functioning essentially as a free, automated buffer zone, they take the hits. Meeting a tragic end through total defeat doesn't even stop the utility. Pouring resources into the harsh territory, their family's investments act like a sponge. Soaking up incoming orc aggression effortlessly, they protect the core lands. Shielding Hallraven from sudden, devastating shocks, the system works like a charm. Proving to be fiercely effective and undeniably brilliant, her ruthless planning pays off. Hearing that a mysterious VIP backed by royal authority just dropped crazy cash, purchasing a small nation's worth of half-elves in one go, she freaked out. Needing desperately to uncover my true identity, she sent out the hounds. Dispatching her loyal butler to escort me back, she made her move. Waving off any intimidation, I strolled right into Vern's heavily fortified inner sanctum. Acting like I owned the entire joint, I walked with supreme confidence. Brimming with escalating irritation, the tight-lipped butler watched my careless demeanor closely. Displaying absolutely zero, and I mean completely zero, respect for the tension in the room. Even high-ranking princes and princesses would literally bow down to show massive respect for this border governor. Pacing around the room, I just checked everything out, giving off major real estate appraiser energy like I was Loki deciding to buy the place. Then I stepped into her study. And boom, there she was. Marquise Hallraven lounging on a sofa while rocking a deep blue velvet dress, flexing some gorgeous gold vine embroidery. The afternoon sunlight hit her at the absolute peak angle, glowing right on her pale neck, those bare shoulders, and a chest area she was putting front and center. The outfit hugged every single curve like body paint. Did my gaze linger on certain spots for a bit longer than standard diplomacy allows? According to her female intuition, absolutely yes, no doubt about it. Look, I'm a full-blown dragon. Not some boring monk and my red. Dragon blood definitely has strong takes on gorgeous women, very strong takes, which the Marquise noticed before frowning. Her butler caught me checking her out, and he started glaring even harder still. I'm a legendary gold dragon rocking the king's seal. What were they gonna do anyway? Hand me a parking ticket for aggressive eye contact. This whole meeting was about to get wild, so let me fill you in on my sit-down with Marquise Hallraven, or as I've come to know her, CLA. One thing just led to another. You know, I walked right into that office totally expecting a dry political chat about border lines and mutual defense treaties. What I definitely didn't see coming was ending up in the tiny bedroom hidden behind her office as dusk fell outside the windows. But hey, here we are, life keeps you on your toes. CLIA happens to be a 5th-tier silver knight, which sounds pretty epic, until you realize she got there by burning through enough resources to fund 4 or 5 regular silver knights. Just to boost herself, her actual inborn talent is basically a participation trophy. Though I totally respect the grind for needing combat skills, since psychotic orc assassins are always trying to take out border governors, she still can't actually beat a real assassin somehow managing to stay alive, until backup bodyguards finally rolled up on the scene. That was the bare minimum standard. She low-key cleared even her legendary silver knight toughness, couldn't keep her legs from shaking uncontrollably in the aftermath, though. Standing tall and glancing down at her trembling frame, she flushed into a blazing shade of bright tomato red drawing in a steadying breath with jaw-dropping professional composure. She piped up, "Are you satisfied, Sir Hardy? I've seriously got to hand it to this absolute icon." Her brain was still running maxed-out calculations for peak political advantage, while her knees were literally doing jazz hands in terror now. That is a true politician grindset. She wasn't even mad about the chaotic mess that went down. Apparently flexing a legendary gold dragon in a wager is the ultimate flex and bragging rights that high society noble ladies would literally kill, for she just couldn't spill the tea to anyone, seeing as she's a serious border governor rather than some gossip-loving socialite at a tea party. Had she been an ordinary noblewoman, instead her inner circle would never hear the end of this epic story with a flick of subtle wind magic. I yanked her backward into my embrace. A startled yelp slipped past her lips as she crashed straight into my chest. Her entire body locked up stiff for a fraction of a second before melting as 2 pale arms locked securely around my neck, and she pressed tightly against me like I was the only source of warmth left in a freezing winter. I made her a solid promise Direham would firmly plant its roots on the frontier to shoulder the heavy burden of keeping the orcs at bay. And should the Orc Empire ever pull off a full-scale invasion, I'd personally guarantee the total survival of the Hallafin family line. Honestly, that promise didn't cost me a single thing. Staying put was already part of my master plan anyway. Plus, evacuating a handful of people amidst a major military onslaught is a breeze. A legendary dragon could ghost past any orc blockade effortlessly, without leaving a trace of detection. Sure, Tier 8 warriors might get pinned down and trapped, but living legends move completely unrestricted. The orcs are way too smart to throw out their own heavy-hitter legends on a casual whim either back. During their last massive all-out war 2 centuries ago, the entire human civilization had to hit pause on fighting each other just to survive, nearly wiping the entire orc empire off the map. While humanity was fighting, other races tried to stab them in the back, and they've been getting relentlessly checked for it ever since, with the half-elf kingdom being Exhibit A. So both sides keep their heavy hitters on the bench during normal skirmishes, acting on a strict gentleman's agreement that is backed up by the very real threat of total extinction. For Clea, though, my worthless promise was an absolute W. Her current situation is low-key tragic. Her husband happens to be a high-ranking Justice Church bishop who is permanently stationed down in the capital. And how do I phrase this nicely? He'd much rather hang out with teenage boys than his own wife. They barely exchange words whenever he actually drops by, because it's purely for show. She has been holding down an entire border province all by herself, battling constant orc threats 365 days a year, and hasn't chilled out in literally forever right after getting my word. She simply closed her eyes and let her exhausted head drop onto my shoulder. Passing out cold in a matter of seconds, I just sat there gently rubbing her smooth back, feeling genuinely bad for the woman. Functioning as a frontline governor while married to an absentee husband who is completely uninterested in women is a major L. Plus, another massive orc invasion is looming on the horizon. Even though the last one was half a century ago, orc birth rates are so completely insane that endless internal bloodbaths and cannibalism still can't put a dent in their numbers. Within the next couple of years, millions of those monsters are going to flood south again. Clea is fully aware of this, which explains why she latched onto me so desperately. Having a legendary gold dragon in your corner isn't just a cool flex, it might literally mean the difference between her lineage surviving or getting completely wiped from the history books. Meanwhile, I secured a heavy-hitter political ally, solid provincial backing, and a very close bond with a gorgeous female governor, all without dropping a single extra gold coin. Speaking as Red Dragon Blood, we completely sign off on this move. Speaking as Gold Dragon Blood, we are out here saving lives today. Combining both bloodlines proves we are absolute geniuses. Let me break down the brutal geopolitics of acting as a northern human shield. Since Clea clearly isn't seeing the whole picture, the core mechanics of the Orc Empire's population boom operate like this, due to their rapid breeding cycles every half-century or so. The sprawling grasslands literally run out of food for everyone. Rival orc tribes start eyeing each other's lunch with suspicion, making tensions spike until the behemoth royal family steps up to say, hey, instead of turning on each other, let's go raid the humans. It's basically a low-key controlled population dump, where they invade and burn through a few million bottom-tier orcs against fortified human positions. And once that expendable cannon fodder is sufficiently thinned out, everyone packs up and heads home. Crisis managed. See you in 50 years. Meanwhile, down in the bleeding heart of Flowing Cloud Province, the main issue is that every single time the kingdom mobilizes its armies, it takes ages for troops to actually move, leaving this vulnerable frontier province with zero time to react. It gets totally steamrolled in a flash, while the Royal Central Army is still lacing up their combat boots back at the capital. Only after a brutal war of attrition does the kingdom fight back, eventually pushing the invading orcs away, and finally handing the smoldering ruins back to the exhausted Horvan family with a shrug. Here you go, guys, good luck. Well, assuming anything is left standing. Naive Clea genuinely thinks the kingdom gives their land back purely out of gratitude for 2 centuries of loyal, bleeding service. Oh, that's adorable, but the real reason is that absolutely nobody else wants this cursed sandbox. It's basically being rewarded with a rickety house that burns to the ground every few decades. Other snobby nobles would literally rather eat glass than govern Flowing Cloud Province, while the ultra-sheltered central nobles are especially terrified of the front lines shifting, knowing that if all 9 northern provinces collapse, they suddenly become the new frontline target, a terrifying nightmare scenario they want zero part of. So the upper crust pitches in spare change to rebuild Hallraven following each invasion, not because they are generous souls, but strictly for self-preservation. Please just keep being our human meat shield. Here is some hush money. Try not to flatline permanently. Anyway, that evening I was kicking back in Clea's quiet study, deeply scanning an amazingly detailed map she had handed over to me, which totally blew the king's official version out of the water. It clearly mapped out every hidden mineral deposit, every lethal danger zone, absolutely everything. And lo and behold, right there west of Durham, sat a massive, untapped iron mine. The only catch was that it was totally overrun by nasty goblins and pesky kobolds. Now, for any regular, run-of-the-mill noble cleaning out that mine would demand a serious army, honestly endless headaches and non-stop patrols, given how these critters reproduce like hyped-up rabbits. 2 to 4 eggs are dropped by kobolds a few times every single year, and their hatchlings are ready for battle in just a couple of years. Though for me personally, I simply roll up looking like a full dragon, and the kobolds will literally simp for me on sight. These scaly little weirdos are completely obsessed, with dragons convinced they share some royal bloodline with us. Flash a real dragon in front of them, and they will literally trip over their own feet, swearing eternal loyalty, plus free miners right there, with zero recruitment overhead. Our kobolds basically useless in tons of ways, though. Totally, but they cost nothing. Useless yet free is hands down my favorite price tier Clea. Was Loki super jealous of this little superpower? Why do they even worship dragons? She kept pressing, and I was like, look, lady, I have no clue why do cats love cardboard boxes. Some things just make no sense. Then came our little business arrangement. While Clea was taking a quick nap earlier, I pitched a sweet trade. I would help evolve one minor spirit from her family's collection into a major powerhouse. And in exchange, she would hand over 10 distinct kinds of spirit bugs. Variety is a must here. Peanut bugs for pumping out oil birch bugs to secure premium timber grape bugs to craft fine wine diversity is definitely the secret sauce of territorial growth. She was definitely skeptical, yet agreed, since the whole arrangement carried zero risk for her. My payment is collected strictly after the job is done. And let's be real, trading 10 spirit bugs for one greater spirit is basically swapping a tiny handful of seeds. For a literal golden goose, she would have to be nuts to pass. Her knights soon brought in a barley plant, acting as a small spirit's host and a pretty mid-tier performer. Managing roughly 300 acres of enhanced crop yield, she deliberately selected something safe, that she could afford to lose just in case things went south. Gotta respect a smart, cautious woman. I can totally vibe with that without wasting time. I squeezed out a single drop of moonlight juice directly onto the plant, completely frying Clea's brain. The vegetation started shifting and evolving right away. The minor spirit instantly slipped into full evolution mode, standing completely paralyzed right in front of her wide eyes with her jaw hanging open, and her brain gears spinning into overdrive. A faint scent of smoke drifted into my senses. Get this straight, just one single drop of my juice can evolve a basic spirit bug instantly into a greater spirit. Yet I am not about to flex that kind of overpowered cheat. Pulling that stunt gets you fast kidnapped by desperate kingdoms. Instead, I engineered it so that it looked like I merely aided a tiny spirit in breaking past its natural evolutionary bottleneck, making it way more digestible for normal people. Humans will always vibe with things fitting their current mindset. A mysterious catalyst is totally fine, while literally rewriting the laws of nature tends to spark total panic moments later. The miniature spirit previously standing just a few dozen centimeters tall had transformed into a full 1.4-meter greater spirit. She stood frozen, blinking away with the most mind-boggled look I have ever witnessed on any magical creature, akin to falling asleep as a simple caterpillar and waking up as a butterfly without anyone explaining the middle part at all. Clay stared at her newly upgraded greater spirit, then fixed her gaze on me before looking back at the spirit once more. I could practically hear the gears turning in her head, recalculating precisely how invaluable my alliance truly was. And the verdict is that I am crazy valuable. Thus the barley spirit completed her evolution and immediately glanced down at her own palms as though she had just unplugged from the matrix. Clay, I just evolved, yes, sweetie. Welcome to the big leagues. Let me break down the numbers for you regarding why Clay was freaking out without a greater spirit by her side. 4,000 acres of land typically yield about 390,000 pounds of grain each year, while a third of those fields must remain fallow every season. Yet with a greater spirit, all 4,000 acres run continuously year-round. Each acre skyrockets from 150 pounds to over 400, bringing the total output to a massive 1.6 million pounds. That represents a quadruple boost from just one single upgrade. Plus, some crops randomly mutate into spirit grain, which actively accelerates nightly training speeds. It essentially upgrades an ordinary farm into a magic powerhouse. Claire's breathing grew so intensely rapid that her chest was practically causing a mini earthquake. I'm just chilling there with my arms crossed, totally unfazed and low-key chill, since I've already got 20-something greater spirits back crib. This feels kind of like watching someone lose their mind over finding a $20 bill when you've got an entire vault stacked with gold bars. She managed to get barely grounded and slid over 15 spirit bugs, instead of the promised 10, throwing in 5 bonus bugs, completely free of charge, just begging, please be my bestie forever. Then she scurried right behind my chair, started rubbing my shoulders, and purred out loud, "Is there anything else I can do for you, bestie? This chick is an absolute mastermind politician." Even while vibrating with crazy excitement, she kept her cool enough not to beg for extra. Greater spirits, knowing full well that looking desperate would cost her way more down the road than any quick short-term flex. So instead she totally flexed her value through completely different means. Her dress happened to slip right off. These things just happen, since physics is wild like that. I ended up spending the next 10+ days hanging at Vern Fortress with CLIA deep into mapping out territorial strategies when I finally rolled out. She watched me leave with that dramatic stare, usually saved for soldiers, shipping off to the front lines, while her dead weight hubby, stuck living in the capital, and showing up maybe once a year, can totally rot, because she's got a legendary gold dragon boyfriend now. Talk about a major upgrade. I flew right back to Durham, shifting into full dragon mode, rocking all 200 meters of magnificent golden glory, and on purpose blasted through the clouds with a deafening thunderous roar right as I touched down near camp. And why not, since the very first wave of 3,000 half-elf captives had just rolled in, and they seriously needed a reality check meeting. I slammed down like a meteor, shaking the ground so hard that half-elves were literally tripping over. These folks had been throwing nasty glares at my guards with "we're gonna murder you all in your sleep" vibes straight for 2 weeks, such a tough crowd to crack yet. When a massive 200-meter golden dragon drops out of the sky and glares straight at you with cold, reptilian eyes, your attitude adjusts real quick. A few passed out on the spot, while the rest kept shaking nonstop. You could practically see their brains totally short-circuiting. Wait, the dude who literally bought us is actually a dragon. A full-blown rebellion against a dragon was brewing among them. Oh yikes, oh snap, no way. My absolute full dragon voice was unleashed upon them right there, dripping with pure authority, as I declared, "I am Hardy. Starting today, your new master stands before you." Did that actually sound like a gold dragon to anyone? Not really, because it totally gave off red dragon vibes instead, those classic ones infamous for being total tyrannical overlords. But hey, you know what? Sometimes you just gotta lean into your mother's side of the family. Being sweet can wait until they stop plotting cold-blooded murder. Dropping to their knees one by one, every single half-elf submitted rebellion officially canceled, and employee onboarding successfully wrapped up. And believe me, there is plenty more on the way. A second batch totaling 6,000 half-elves had already departed for the fortress, and was currently en route. Some serious insider intel was even dropped on me by Count Snow. Rodlin has mapped out a plan to completely wipe out the half-elf kingdom in the span of 2 to 5 years. Total annihilation awaiting them as a sovereign state. When that disaster finally hits, another massive wave of half-elf slaves will flood the market. Though here is the major plot twist: as soon as the half-elf kingdom vanishes into thin air, Rodland won't need to desperately dump prisoners off their hands anymore, causing prices to skyrocket right back up. Translation for you guys: you better buy now while supplies last. A strict limited-time offer, basically Black Friday for half-elves. Placing a massive bulk pre-order is something I'm seriously contemplating, just like signing up for a monthly meal kit subscription box, except the meals are totally sentient and can handle farming chores. My inner red dragon blood has honestly never felt more stoked. A massive workforce has officially been secured, along with a practically free iron mine, just sitting there waiting to be claimed. My territory is developing at absolute warp speed, and I haven't even been hanging around here for a full month, yet D-Ray Realm is about to flip from a total wasteland into a massive boomtown. All it cost me was some pocket change and discounted gold, a couple drops of mystical moonlight juice, and whatever tiny shred of dignity Chloe's missing husband had left behind. To be totally real with you, I was a bit bummed out by how easily those half-elves threw in the towel. A whole strategy was already locked and loaded by me just in case any of them tried acting tough. After catching a glimpse of my true form, my original plan was shipping them straight to the goblin mines. And honestly, the logistics were totally locked down. Until boom, one single glimpse of a 200-meter golden dragon, and every single one of them just folded faster than cheap lawn chairs. 3,000 half-elves turned instantly obedient, leaving not even one dramatic holdout screaming, "I'd rather die. Come on, people, where's your fighting spirit? Give me something to work with." Though to be completely fair, I get it. Psychologically speaking, submitting to a dragon feels way easier than submitting to humans who literally destroyed your homeland. No personal grudges exist between them and me, plus the fact that I'm literally the size of a mountain. It's pretty hard to maintain any rebellious energy when your brand new boss could accidentally step on your entire village without blinking. Now, hidden among the regular slaves, Count Snow had tucked away a special little bonus gift: about a dozen half-elf noble girls. Even after enduring 2 grueling weeks of marching through the wilderness and looking like absolute hot messes, These girls still had that undeniable natural beauty and sharp aristocratic grace shining right through. Stronger elf blood usually flows through half-elf nobles, meaning they typically get prettier faces. Though let's just say elf genetics aren't always super generous in certain departments, despite a few lucky exceptions. Elf genes aren't always a flat terrain, since some half-elves happily inherit the human side's architecture. Staring down at these shivering noble girls, I immediately recognized my new managers. They possess the ability to read, think critically, and actually follow complex instructions. Regular half-elf peasants make great farming material, but someone's gotta organize thousands of incoming workers, streamline the logistics, and handle paperwork. Administration was basically what these girls were born and raised for. Worried about loyalty? Please give me a break. I simply fed them a few drops of diluted dragon blood, and within minutes, they shifted from terrified prisoners into fiercely devoted servants. Watching that transformation was low-key art. 1 second, they were staring at me like I was literal death incarnate, and the next, they were bowing respectfully while asking for their very first assignments. Known as the world's fastest corporate onboarding program, dragon blood conversion is elite, though the rest of the half-elves are barred from wasting precious dragon blood on 50,000 peasants. Handling them will be a breeze for my passive dragon aura. Just by living near me over the next few months, tiny scales will slowly start sprouting on them while unshakable loyalty develops within. It hits just like second-hand smoke, except devotion replaces cancer in this deal. Straight to work went the noble girls, sorting craftsmen from civilians right away, organizing construction crews on the fly, and setting up kitchens. Meanwhile, Tree-Bard along with the treemen had already finished Durham's outer walls, while I was away, standing a massive 18 meters high. Fortress-grade walls, 10 meters thick, were totally done, and they were now building my inner castle, laying out a 400-meter-square fortress right in the city center. 2 weeks of construction built my future palace, giving my city better walls already than places that took decades to build. Magic tree labor hits different, yet something critical is still missing: horses and livestock. Now I could totally buy them. Though regular war horses cost 10+ gold coins, quality ones run in the dozens, and magical-blooded premium war horses cost hundreds of gold each. And here is the absolute scam. Every single war horse you buy has been castrated, meaning you can never breed your own herd from purchased horses. It's basically the medieval equivalent of printer ink business models that sell you the product once just to make sure you keep coming back forever. You know what? No. As a dragon with red dragon blood running through me, buying horses isn't my style. Instead, I'll head to the orc grasslands and permanently borrow them. Tisna was told to have the half-elves build stables and livestock pens first. Once those are ready to go, I'll be making a shopping trip to the grasslands. Any orc tribe has regular livestock, but for proper war horses, the centaur tribes gotta be hit up, seeing as they are the only ones who breed proper horse herds. Actually, come to think of it, borrowing some centaurs as well is probably a smart move, considering I've only got a handful of horse handlers among my half-elf craftsmen. 3 guys trying to manage 1,000 horses is a total mismatch. Enter the centaurs. Those horses they used to own can actually be looked after by them. It's seriously low-key poetic and efficient. Plus, they already know which ones love to bite my gold dragon half is pitching peaceful negotiations, while my red dragon half is arguing we should just take whatever we want. My pragmatic side suggests soaring right over. In our full dragon forms, they'll be volunteering instantly. Gotta love this kind of internal consensus. Getting down to business at this brand new horse ranch requires planting some purple alfalfa spirit grass first. Top-tier horse feed is exactly what this stuff is blended in with regular grass, and premium war horses are practically guaranteed a single drop of moonlight juice. Fell right onto that tiny plant, making it shoot up from 1 meter to 3 meters in mere seconds. It started looking less like a blade of grass and more like a super enthusiastic sapling. That little spirit bug resting on my shoulder simultaneously went through a rapid glow-up, morphing into a tiny fairy, and finally leveling up to a full greater spirit in about 3 minutes flat, naming her Ziu. The freshly born purple alfalfa greater spirit rushed forward immediately and launched herself straight into my chest with a hug, nuzzling against me affectionately like a cute kitten. Contrasting sharply with the modestly built Tisna Ziu, came fully equipped with some seriously impressive natural endowments, rocking nothing more than a rustic grass skirt, crafted entirely from woven alfalfa while standing right there. Leaving acres of pale skin exposed to the open air, she snuggled close while enthusiastically declaring that she'd cultivate the greatest supernatural alfalfa ever seen and trust me. She totally can feeding her enhanced alfalfa to horses on a long-term basis, has the power to upgrade ordinary mounts into legit supernatural war horses. Sure, they might just be bottom-tier supernatural horses, but we can totally make up for quality with sheer quantity cultivate enough magic grass, and offload whatever the horses don't finish as premium feed to other wealthy nobles, and boom an entire booming industry built from just one plant and a fairy girl. Following that up, I planted a couple of white birch spirit plants dedicated to future timber production alongside a white mulberry tree meant for silkworm farming, wondering why silkworms. High-quality silk is basically a goldmine of a currency among high-ranking nobles, and to be exact, Tisna alongside all of my spirit girls have totally developed a flex for silk stockings, specifically the pristine white ones costing 5 gold coins a pair, which are pricier than a half-elf slave per pair, and honestly they run through them like crazy. Just how fast? Let's skip the exact numbers. Suffice it to say the consumption rate is totally unsustainable without any local manufacturing. Also, for the record, silk stockings in this realm were initially tailored for male nobles to rock during jousting matches and royal court gatherings. As time went on, they shifted into a women's thing, and the styles evolved quite a bit. Central Continent nobles still flex them, while Alpha Kingdom nobles don't, though only because they're dead broke. A single pair lasts maybe 3 days tops, which you definitely can't afford when your neighbor is an orc hungry to devour your whole family. That very evening, I was lounging inside my tent with my head resting on Tisna's soft lap, while Avila and Emily knelt right beside me dressed in spaghetti-strap nightgowns and white stockings, giving me a soothing massage. My hands may have wandered down toward their delicate feet, causing them to blush without raising any complaints. Dragon elf girls are remarkably flexible, capable of pulling off all kinds of impressive poses. Sprouting from 1,000-year-old red lotus flowers, you would naturally expect fiery personalities, yet they are genuinely the softest creatures alive. Even when my hands got a bit adventurous, they simply blushed harder and snuggled even closer. They carry one lifelong grievance. Despite being the chosen children of nature, they somehow inherited the infamous elf gene for flatness. Every single time they look down, they feel personally betrayed by their own genetics. We're nature spirits, we just happen to have elf in the name. So why do we get stuck with the elf chest? Life is truly unfair, and meanwhile I took stock of the territory. All 500 guards have successfully broken through to official knight rank thanks to the golden vein blood orchids. Their dragon scales remain fairly subtle for now, appearing as small gold patches across the chest area that stay completely invisible beneath armor. Horns and wings might pop up eventually. Low-key, though, full body scales are totally off the table. 500 certified knights. Bro are enough to make most baron families cry out of pure envy, while a standard baron rocks maybe 15, my half. Dragon fighters totally outclass regular troops thanks to draconic blood, even if they're still a bit green in combat. Though time will fix that, especially with 3,000 half-elves stepping up to handle construction and daily grind. My vanguard is finally free to grind full-time out there. Over 50,000 more half-elves are rolling in throughout this next month, including several thousand battle-hardened warriors. Once the whole squad arrives, Durham's head count will match a standard baron's patch. With enough firepower to totally smoke most Viscount territories, the single thing my squad is missing are mounts, but hey, that's tomorrow's headache tomorrow. I'm raiding the orc grasslands for some friendly borrowing. My style of running this territory feels just like an idle simulation game. I've already punched in the unlimited resources cheat code, though turning on God mode is a hard pass, where's the fun in being totally invincible anyway? I actually want to soak in the grind, leveling up slowly and watching my base expand, flexing that true lord lifestyle. Centuries of lifespan are sitting right in front of me. So zero rush, it's just that my definition of chill progression looks like absolute hyperspeed. To everyone else, minor exploits totally don't count as cheating. That's my vibe. Here's a quick status report on Avila and Emily's ongoing existential crisis. After eyeing the half-elf noble girls and their generous proportions, they checked out the cat girl maids I scored during that smuggler raid. And even those cat girls totally outsized them. I tried reassuring them that small is totally cute too, though they weren't buying it at all. Dragon elf genetics really did them super dirty in one very specific category: nature's own kids blessed with massive magical power, devastating combat stats, eternal youth, and flat-out A-cups. The universe definitely has a twisted sense of humor. Anyway, time to dive into the main event. Stretching out west of Durham is the bleak Moselle wasteland, where a gorgeous iron mine sits tucked away inside, just waiting for me to pull up. Iron is literally everything out here, fam. Farming tools require it, along with weapons and armor, making it the backbone of civilization itself. Sure, buying iron like a basic NPC is an option, but do you know what goes way harder than that? Owning an entire mine staffed by a free workforce that literally simp for you like a living god. The wasteland is absolutely crawling with monsters that would send any average lord running back home in tears, starting with hobgoblins. Forget those tiny green idiots, because these units stand 2 meters tall, boast serious military discipline, and are organized into actual tactical squads. Hundreds of fighters make up every single hobgoblin tribe, backed by regular goblins serving as total cannon fodder and bugbears deployed as heavy shock troops. Just one of these tribes could completely wreck most frontier knights, yet multiple tribes occupy this very wasteland. Hundreds of hobgoblins populate the largest reported tribe, alongside dozens of bugbears, organized wolf cavalry, and massive infantry setups. Even established viscounts would sweat bullets over that. While it is nightmare territory for anyone else, for me, it was basically employee orientation day as I flew over in dragon form, with Avila and Emily right behind me rocking their red dragon shapes. You see, I am a gold dragon, but my dragon elf girls awaken completely different bloodlines. Tisna got gold dragon while Avila and Emily pulled the red dragon. Monsters like hobgoblins and kobolds, they are obsessed with red dragons. Red dragons are the ultimate bosses in their eyes, being cruel, domineering, and conquest-obsessed, making it a toxic cultural match made in heaven. The Iron Mine is our first stop, which is currently squatted on by the Bloodfang kobold tribe. Around 1,000 kobolds live there, which is a massive flex for this barren wasteland. They were grinding away at their mining tasks, shoving mini carts in and out of the tunnels like scaly medieval factory workers. Breaking through the clouds above their camp, I dropped a massive roar that literally knocked a bunch of them off their feet. Hundreds of kobolds scattered away like startled lizards, while some even passed out from the sheer dragon aura. Yet the clever ones hit the dirt immediately, Loki tripping out with pure, unadulterated ecstasy written all over those tiny little muggles of faces, as if their literal savior had just dropped straight down from the heavens, which, from their point of view, I totally had. Their head honcho, Blood Fang, was actually Loki fascinating. He's a kobold who somehow unlocked a red dragon bloodline, and leveled up into a Tier 2 dragon blood sorcerer massive flex for someone standing at a solid 85 centimeters tall. And Eward is what he is. Basically a rare-winged kobold subspecies, tiny little bat wings strapped to his back, giving him low-altitude flight, though his combat stats are still trash still, for a kobold nerd. The guy's pretty impressive, and here is where it gets hilarious. Since Blood Fang rolls as a red dragon bloodline sorcerer, he naturally has a built-in radar for draconic energy, so when he laid eyes on me, a full-blown gold dragon, his internal bloodline started going off like crazy. Mostly because I've got red dragon blood mixed in there too, he stared hard at my golden scales, then glanced down at his own aggressively red ones, and I could literally watch his tiny brain short-circuit in real-time. Wait. Why is my blood reacting to this gold dragon? Did I somehow secretly awaken gold dragon blood instead? Have I had it wrong this entire time? Questioning me was way too terrifying, so he just gaslit himself instead, which is peak comedy. Absolutely cinema, because without me dropping a single word, he bolted over and face-planted straight onto the floor. Blood Fang bows down to the great master. What a simp. I'm honestly kind of digging this little guy. The entire Blood Fang clan belongs to me now. Not a single kobold dared to raise an objection. Bending the knee to a dragon is basically their ultimate life goal. Sure, I might technically be a gold dragon, which is a bit awkward for creatures who usually prefer edgy red dragons. Still, when your new CEO is literally 200 meters long, you don't really care about his color scheme. Gazing down at Blood Fang, I threw out a casual question. Are there any other kobold squads around here? His face lit up like a Christmas tree. Absolutely. Plenty of free miners for the taking, free infantry, free workforce. Everything is free real estate. This wasteland isn't a danger zone at all. It's a massive, untapped labor pool just waiting for me. The Iron Mine, the Hobgoblin Battalion, the entire kobold workforce. Every single piece of it unlocked for the absolute bargain price of just showing up and flexing as a dragon. I Loki love this gig. Bloodfang flexed his tiny chest, puffing it out dramatically right before telling me that his squad was basically the biggest kobold faction around here. Adorably enough, I gave him a patronizing pat on his metaphorical noggin before dispatching Avila and Emily to round up every other kobold tribe hanging out in the local vicinity. My overarching master plan is actually pretty straightforward. Merge all these scattered kobolds into one absolute mega colony, push 3 shifts of non-stop around-the-clock mining operations, and just let my passive dragon aura slowly glow up their stats over time. As that radiant aura gradually thickens their dragon blood, it naturally makes them way stronger, significantly bigger, and way more likely to evolve into high-tier dragon blood sorcerers. Or even Urds, though Urds are presently kinda useless, honestly. They're just tiny, flying kobold variants equipped with bat wings and zero combat stats, but this is precisely where I'm playing the ultimate long game. With their internal dragon blood concentrating more and more, their physical frames are eventually going to scale up to actual dragonborn dimensions. A legitimately intelligent and formidable race, standing a full 2 meters tall while tipping the scales at nearly 300 pounds. Natural-born warriors gifted with insane physical strength. Now just picture a massive, dragonborn-sized powerhouse that can actually take flight. That right there is a top-tier aerial combat unit worth flexing. Sure, it's going to take years, maybe even decades, but seeing as I've got centuries of immortal life ahead of me, patience is basically a core dragon virtue. Well, specifically a golden dragon virtue anyway. Red dragons have zero patience for this kind of stuff, so I just conveniently vibe switch between the two depending on whatever the situation calls for. Let's do a quick biology breakdown here, since random folks always keep mixing these terms up. Half-dragons are the direct offspring of actual biological dragons and various humanoid races, or in my specific case, mortals transformed directly by dragon blood, much like my elite guard unit. Dragonborn, meanwhile, are a completely separate, standalone species supposedly crafted by the ancient dragon deities themselves. They look humanoid while rocking hard scales, distinct dragon heads, imposing horns, and sharp claws, though they completely lack wings or tails. So yeah, totally different things. My trusted guards are half-dragons, while Bloodfang secretly dreams of getting that massive dragonborn stature. And honestly, neither group appreciates being mislabeled by anyone. While we were out scouting the deep mine tunnels, Bloodfang casually dropped the info that his tribe got completely enslaved by a brutal Minotaur clan just outside the wasteland. Every single month, a strict quota of iron ore had to be delivered by them, and if they fell short, random kobolds would get slaughtered by the Minotaurs until morale improved. Talk about a toxic management style. The Minotaurs residing in this realm are definitely not the gentle, misunderstood creatures portrayed in certain fantasy stories. Standing at an average height of 2 meters, they are stacked with pure muscle and swing massive single-handed axes that outweigh an entire kobold put together after surviving centuries of the Orc Empire's ruthless survival of the fittest culture. Literally, every ounce of friendliness has been thoroughly beaten out of them. Yet the second I heard the word Minotaur, my brain instantly pivoted to something super practical. Spring plowing is kicking off in just a few weeks. And DRM currently has 0 oxen and 0 horses, you know, what functions basically like an ox, while also holding a plow. A Minotaur? Boom. Problem solved. I am totally going to recruit some Minotaurs for strictly agricultural purposes. Whether they volunteer or get voluntold is something we're about to find out by nightfall. Avila and Emily returned with the results. The Bloodfang tribe had absorbed all the nearby kobold factions, blowing their numbers up from 1,000 to over 3,000, and that isn't even close to the total kobold population out in the Mosul wasteland. I just stopped counting, because 3,000 is already way more miners than I actually need. Talk about a W problem. To have feeding 3,000 kobolds sounds super expensive, though I handled it like an absolute pro. By planting oyster mushroom spirit grass directly inside their caves, underground mushroom farming was already second nature to kobolds. And with the spirit plant, turbocharging production, weekly harvests became possible, yielding several times the normal amount. These upgraded mushrooms are also way more nutritious, so the kobolds won't run into any health issues living off an all-fungus diet. A completely self-sustaining food supply with 0 ongoing cost. Honestly, I'm basically running a closed-loop economy here, fueled entirely by arcane agriculture reaching out to Clea via a mystical communicator device. I put in a request for her to source more mushroom spirit bugs for me. Bloodfang had previously spilled that the Mosul wasteland holds way more than just iron, housing copper deposits, coal, and deep down a rumored secret magic crystal mine. Magic crystals literally power everything here, ranging from enchanted weaponry to heavy city defenses, making them the ultimate petroleum equivalent of this universe. Cobbled colonies are going to be set up at every single mine, and every single colony needs its own mushroom farm, which totally explains the bulk bug order. Solidifying my grip over the Bloodfang tribe was the main goal, so I slipped Bloodfang himself a single drop of my dragon blood, just one tiny drop. But being a legendary tier dragon, that single drop hit his tiny kobold frame like an absolute nuclear injection. Bloodfang instantly morphed into a full-blown ancient kobold, serving as a total throwback to a forgotten era when kobolds actually had their own thriving civilization, chatted in ancient Draconic, and stood way taller and smarter than modern kobolds. The glow-up was seriously insane. Bloodfang shot up vertically from 85 centimeters straight to 1.5 meters. His red scales turned wildly vivid and brilliant, while his pathetic little bat wings completely reshaped into legit miniature dragon wings. His power levels skyrocketed right up to Tier 3 among kobolds, giving him the absolute vibe of a small giant, like a living legend, casually strolling among his people. He started flexing and pacing through the tribe right away, showing off his completely revamped physique, and I could totally tell he was low-key hunting for me just to prove his endless, undivided loyalty, if being a massive suck-up was an Olympic event. Bloodfang would totally sweep gold, silver, and bronze all at once. Meanwhile, back at Burn Fortress, Clea was chilling in her study, mulling over my request for those mushroom bugs and apparently daydreaming about me too. Honestly, her cheeks were catching that blushing pink glow again, and her usually sharp gaze drifted off into a dreamy haze. She low-key confessed to herself that dragons happen to be exceptionally gifted when it comes to certain private departments. After finally pulling herself together, she called for her female steward, and premium prices for mushroom spirit bugs have been greenlit by yours truly, Chop Chop. And get it handled fast, my client totally gets why I'm after those bugs. She's clued into the Moselle wasteland mines, knowing every single deposit, and Hazard the Hall of Infamily holds detailed intel on the entire region. That whispered magic crystal mine deep within the wasteland is totally real instead of just a rumor. The Hall of Infamily just never had the military muscle to claim it. Thousands of hobgoblins and bugbears, along with other monsters, block civilization from reaching those crystals. What's an impossible dream for them is basically just next Tuesday for me. Show up, roll out, and flex hard, gather worshippers, and kick off the mining operations. The Dragon recruitment program keeps dropping massive WS at zero cost while CLIA sits in her study, crunching the numbers on my Moselle wasteland takeover. And I can low-key feel her saltiness radiating straight through the magic comms device. Every single mineral deposit in that wasteland is mapped out by her. Iron, copper, coal, and the crown jewel itself. A confirmed magic crystal mine buried deep inside. Not rumored, but 100% verified. The Hallraven family has known about it for years, yet never possessed the firepower to secure it. The economics drive her absolutely insane. Just pushing raw ore out of those mines would pull in 20k to 30k gold coins annually. Refining it into steel and crafting weapons and armor would net over 1 million gold every. And inside a kingdom locked in constant Orc Wars, military gear practically sells itself. The catch is customers paying entirely in IOUs, because the royal treasury is perpetually broke. Each time the Orc Empire launches an invasion, the major noble houses get roped into being involuntary creditors to the crown, stuck collecting stacks of empty promises that take 30 years to clear with zero interest attached, unless the kingdom is feeling unusually generous, which it never is. Even so, CLIA could never touch those mines given the massive upfront investment. Wiping out thousands of these monsters would easily leave multiple noble houses completely broke. And even if they somehow pulled it off, a single Orc raiding party crashing straight through the mining operations would obliterate everything before they broke. Even protection fees are collected from kobolds by minotaurs, who are just middlemen answering to way bigger Orc bosses lurking deeper in the grasslands. Technically speaking, the entire wasteland falls under the Orc sphere of influence for me, though. I just stroll in, let out a single roar, and every single kobold tribe bends the knee for good. The hobgoblins will fall in line as soon as I drop by alongside Avila, and Emily flexing their red dragon forms free miners, free soldiers, free everything, with my total startup investment being just a few drops of moonlight juice for the mushroom farms. Clea's standing right over there, crunching the numbers on millions in theoretical revenue while grinding her teeth in frustration. She's low-key stoked that I'm a gold dragon instead of a red one. Having a legendary red dragon set up a military-industrial complex right next door would give every single governor across 3 provinces chronic insomnia, but a gold dragon doing it. Now that is a strategic asset she can literally cozy up to. Beyond just being a mining paradise, the Moselle wasteland is absolutely crawling with hobgoblins who are massive, disciplined, and militarily organized monsters, basically built from the ground up as born soldiers. Every single hobgoblin tribe operates like a legit army, featuring strict hierarchies and intense tactical drills. Rally them all together under my banner, and I've instantly secured a professional infantry force. Give them a few decades of proper feeding and top-tier gear, and I'd boast a fully armored hobgoblin heavy infantry legion. Thousands of 2-meter-tall warriors clad in steel plate marching in tight formation. The exact kind of powerhouse that makes Orc warbands seriously rethink their life choices. Between the kobold miners, the hobgoblin army, the treeman construction crew, the half-elf workforce, and my half-dragon night guard, Durheim is shaping up to be the most terrifyingly well-staffed territory across the entire northern frontier. And I haven't even been here for a full month yet. Scouting out this totally dead wasteland suddenly brought up Bloodfang's random words about wild giants that used to roam these parts that Loki sparked an idea I had been Loki cooking up for ages. Cloud giants, because every self-respecting gold dragon just has to keep cloud giant retainers. Since it is practically tradition, cloud giants are totally the civilized branch of the giant family. Sporting pale blue or milky white skin, and insane physical strength, where a grown cloud giant easily matches a fifth-tier silver knight in raw muscle power with zero training, required right off the bat, while actually putting in work makes them way scarier. And they are definitely not muscle-bound airheads, because cloud giants actually built a real civilization handling metal-weaving animal husbandry and heavy construction work, nesting in tight family crews up on mountain peaks, or hanging out on floating cloud islands, which totally explains why tracking them down is such a pain. The classic setup between gold dragons and cloud giants is technically billed as an equal contract, where cloud giants watch the dragon's fortress, and the dragon provides heavy military backup, though in reality, when one side is an ancient legendary dragon, and the other is merely a tier 5 giant, calling it equal is being super generous. It feels way more like a boss-employee dynamic, where the boss could literally snack on you, yet cloud giants seem completely cool with this setup, since having a legendary dragon as your personal security detail means zero people mess with you ever again, and honestly, I want a few hundred of them. That sounds like a lot, but cloud giants live spread out across super remote mountain ranges, in tiny family pods, meaning grabbing several hundred requires hunting down dozens of separate families, and convincing each crew one by one, which is going to drain both time and energy. So I decided to just outsource the whole hunt to CLIA. A quick message was sent by me through the magical communication gadget I had left in her hands. Given that the device caps transmissions at 20 characters max, my request had to be brutally short and sweet. Find Cloud Giant's payment spirit evolution. Its simplicity is Loki genius. Upon finally receiving the message, Clea felt pure annoyance hit her first. Cloud giants literally chill on unreachable mountain tops and floating islands. Tracking them down is Loki impossible, even for a powerhouse marquee house, backed by massive intelligence networks. Yet the moment she checked the payout, offering way more spirit evolutions, including multiple greater spirits for the Venn family hall, her eyes literally turned into dollar signs. The tactical math here is just plain obvious. Having multiple greater spirits means food production gets massively cranked up, which leads straight to stronger armies, which means maybe, just maybe, Vern Fortress could actually survive the next full-scale orc invasion without completely crumbling. That kind of win has literally never happened in provincial history. Every single time the orcs go all out, flowing cloud province just collapses. Should Clea manage to flip that script, she would cement the Venn family's legacy for generations, so she locked in her decision, instantly deploying the entire depth of the Venn family's connections, utilizing every single contact, every informant, and every allied house holding a favor to cash in. Finding cloud giants is a massive grind, but when the bag is this heavy, all that grinding becomes so worth it. She would flip the family network upside down if that's what it took. Cloud giants also keep griffins as loyal pet companions if I can recruit enough giants. Scoring a griffin cavalry squad as a bonus might actually happen in Vision, an aerial night squadron soaring through the skies on armored predatory birds. That factor alone would totally flip the military meta of the entire region. Ground forces are formidable, but air dominance is what actually wins wars. Recruiting several hundred cloud giants is the ultimate dream, of course, though realistically speaking, I might kick things off with just a dozen families and scale up from there. But even 30 cloud giants stationed along Durham's walls would make any oncoming enemy army sweat bullets. Just picture storming a fortress and running into 10-meter-tall titans. Blue-skinned warriors perched high upon the battlements are dropping massive boulders the size of supply wagons right onto your frontline troops. Any sane army would honestly just pivot to an easier target. Between navigating the cloud giant research, scaling up the kobold mining operations, sorting out mushroom farm logistics, and prepping for the hectic spring planting season, I literally have way too much on my plate right now. Thank goodness I've got a provincial governor taking care of my errands, a dragon elf handling the territory oversight, and an entire magical creature crew physically building my city. Being a supreme dragon lord is a full-on hustle, though it totally beats sleeping in a gloomy cave for 20 years. Half a month flew by, and I now officially claim ownership over the entire Moselle wasteland. We are talking about all 170,000 square kilometers of absolute emptiness. Let that sink in for a second. An expansive territory almost matching the size of the entire flowing cloud province, conquered effortlessly in just 2 weeks by a single dragon who basically just showed up and projected some major intimidation vibes. The surface land is completely desolate and horrible for farming, but underground lies pure treasure. High-grade iron, copper, massive coal veins, and deep-hidden pockets of rare magic crystals. The surface is totally worthless, while the basement is an absolute goldmine. My absolute top priority after subduing the Bloodfang tribe was setting up heavy infrastructure. I immediately dispatched 2 greater spirits alongside 10 black iron treemen to start paving a solid stone road, stretching from Durheim's western gate straight to the mining colony. Simultaneously, a whole crew of half-elf craftsmen marched out toward the Bloodfang territory because I'm currently constructing high-capacity blast furnaces there. Since the massive coal deposits sit right nearby, doing the smelting directly on-site makes way more logistical sense than hauling raw ore all the way back across 20 kilometers of wasteland. Now, blast furnaces primarily spit out pig iron, which is brittle garbage totally unsuited for actual weapons or armor. The real secret hack is converting that metal into steel using a traditional stir-frying method, where workers continually need the cooling iron to precisely balance its carbon levels. While I have the theoretical blueprints completely memorized, my actual hands-on execution experience is sitting at absolute zero. So my skilled half-elf smiths are currently running tons of tests, lots of heavy experimentation, endless trial and error, even more error, the occasional minor workshop fire, and actual progress. Hey, building a futuristic fantasy empire from scratch is messy business during a 2-week wasteland conquest. Tens of thousands of kobolds suddenly flooded my ranks, skyrocketing from just a few thousand Loki out of nowhere. Every single tribe I stumbled upon wasn't even recruited by me. An extra 30,000 would have been added if I had taken them all in. Riding on that wild, absurd population, Wave 2 specialized kobold units were successfully put together by me starting with a dedicated kobold mage corps, as the first division boasting 100 scale sorcerers, wielding dragon bloodline magic. That sounds pretty epic, until you realize most of them can barely bust out 3 spells max each day before completely crashing out for a nap. They essentially function as the magical version of a dying flashlight running on nearly dead batteries. No cap. Even so, having 100 weak mages firing off spells at the exact same time beats having 0 mages. 5 flying squadrons of winged kobolds were assembled by me next, featuring 500 airborne scaly flyers. Their actual combat effectiveness is totally sus at best, yet watching 500 tiny winged critters suddenly cast shadows across the entire sky definitely delivers a massive psychological vibe check. Opponents might not take physical damage, but they will for sure be completely rattled, and Loki, stressed out pure intimidation, often beats dealing actual damage. Honestly, every single ogre I bumped into right out there in the wild lands during exploration was taken out too brutish, brainless, and totally violent, are what ogres are impossible to train and tasting horribly gross, bringing 0 contribution to the table. Whenever one crossed my path, it got swatted away casually like an annoying bug, skipping any negotiation or recruitment pitches entirely. Just a quick splat. Certain creatures simply demand way too much management overhead. The absolute jackpot prizes, though, were the hobgoblins. Raw military hierarchy and absolute strength are worshipped by hobgoblins upon spotting a legendary dragon gliding overhead, proudly flanked by 2 red dragons. Those hobgoblins refuse to run and instead drop straight to their knees. Allegiance was pledged to me by every single hobgoblin tribe, bringing along their disciplined infantry formations, their heavy bugbear shock troops, their fierce wolf cavalry units, and their expendable goblin cannon fodder. These warriors are true professionals, bound tightly by a strict military code. A single well-organized hobgoblin warband could easily roll over most standard human noble armies. All of them now belong to me before the Minotaurs even showed up. Remember those bullies back then who kept shaking down the Bloodfang kobolds for protection money like clockwork every single month? A fresh batch of 500 rolled up ready for action, axes gripped tightly in their fists, fully expecting panicked kobolds, and a totally low-key vibe. Instead, they were completely stunned by me flexing in full dragon form a massive 200 meters of glowing golden scales, with wings stretching out over 500 meters wide, radiating enough pure pressure to make veteran warriors low-key wet their pants in terror. Those 500 Minotaurs were signed on as my brand new workforce in roughly 8 seconds flat. Not a single soul dared to argue back right after that. I had them escort me straight back to their home turf, nestled deep in orc territory, where the remaining Minotaurs were smoothly recruited as well. Packing up their entire tribe in a rush, they relocated right to the edge of the brutal Mozal wasteland. An absolute power move for a location sitting close enough to my domain for easy work assignments, yet far enough out into the grasslands for their herds to vibe and graze. Bringing those minotaurs in came with a major bonus drop Kodo beasts, which are basically giant armored lizards built like tanks standing 8 meters long and 4.5 meters high at the shoulder, tipping the scales at 8 tons, with a deadly battering ram strapped to their heads, acting as the Minotaur's heavy pack animals' trusted war mounts. And occasionally dinner on special nights, their impossibly thick scale armor gets cleverly repurposed into heavy Minotaur body gear. Post-butchering, making it a ridiculously efficient closed-loop ecosystem, zero waste. Eat every single thing available, or whatever scraps are left over. While the Minotaurs now handle transport duty, hauling heavy ore from various mines straight to Bloodfang's settlement using heavy-duty Kodo drone carts. Every single delivery run is strictly supervised by hobgoblin escorts who claim they are just providing friendly security, but are low-key monitoring the Minotaurs' every move. While hobgoblins possess a natural, unshakable loyalty to dragons, Minotaurs definitely do not. Having only joined because I terrified them out of their minds rather than out of genuine goodwill, leaving the hobgoblins to watch them closely with the professional, cold suspicion of hardcore military police officers. It has evolved into a gorgeous system of checks and balances, crafted entirely out of raw fear and predictable racial tendencies. Towering majestically over Bloodfang's settlement in my massive dragon form, thousands of scampering kobolds are visible scurrying down below me, resembling a colony of hyper-industrious ants, leading me to wonder if it was just in my head, or if they actually worked twice as hard whenever I was physically looming overhead. Honestly, I am convinced they did, because absolutely nothing hypes up a kobold workforce quite like having their living dragon god staring down at them from above to maximize employee productivity, thanks to some solid divine intervention. This little settlement has seriously blown up to over 10k kobolds, so I brought my main architect in to map out a legit kobold city. This exact spot is turning into my go-to industrial capital. Every single raw material hauled from wasteland mines gets smelted right here into solid metal ingots before getting shipped off to Durham, a city built from the ground up for manufacturing, as the realm's premier cobalt factory town. 10 massive blast furnaces are already firing away, with each one cranking out 2 tons of pig iron per round. Not gonna lie, that output is way more than I actually need right now, since my smithing crew is still learning the ropes. An assembly line setup has been put in place by me, where each worker only masters a single step of forging weapons or armor parts. Training times get slashed drastically this way, instead of forcing everybody to learn the whole trade. Even with that streamlined training process, though, transforming a half-elf farmer into a decent assembly line hand still takes at least 3 months. They've got to master the techniques first, while building up thick skin for the insane heat and grueling physical grind of metalworking. Standing back, I watched Cobalt crew members pop open a furnace valve, blazing bright orange liquid iron poured down channels straight into waiting molds, utterly breathtaking, yet hazardous. Once cooled down to the optimal point, the metal heads over to crucibles for carbon adjustment, stir-frying raw iron right into high-grade steel. My half-elf engineers are leveling up their skills every single day as the reject numbers keep dropping. Weapons-grade steel production is about to be locked down consistently, shifting from a dead wasteland to an industrial powerhouse in just 2 weeks. My turf now boasts free miners, free soldiers, zero-cost transport, free materials, and a booming manufacturing. Total cash spent amounting to roughly 0 gold pieces. Everything was secured utilizing that time-honored and respected dragon negotiation tactic of simply being massive. If I actually had an accountant on staff, tears of pure joy would definitely be streaming down their face deep inside my veins. My red dragon blood is practically humming with absolute satisfaction. There is genuinely nothing better in this world than free loot. You have to hand it to the kobolds. They are some hardworking little dudes. I will give them credit for being fiercely diligent. They are utterly tireless and never whine. Their only downsides are being low-key clueless and pretty weak. After putting a crew of them on the steel-stirring duty, it became clear they were trying their absolute hardest, even though consistency is definitely not their vibe. One minute they drop some gorgeous high-grade steel, the next they completely ruin it into soft, wrought iron. Wrought iron is way too soft and basically trash for making weapons. But hey, it actually works for decent farming equipment, so nothing ever goes completely to waste here. Every botched batch simply gets recycled into a fresh shovel. That is peak recycling right next to the roaring blast furnace zone. Massive stone workshops have been set up by the hobgoblin craftsmen over there, where sturdy mining pickaxes are hammered out for the kobolds because sure, the kobolds can dig using just their claws, yet that trick only works in loose dirt. Forcing them to scratch their way through solid rock and heavy iron ore would practically be animal abuse. Even my ruthless standards have limits. The Bloodfang settlement looks nothing like it used to. Just 2 weeks ago, having blown up to over 10 times its original size, It has evolved from a primitive little camp into something resembling a legitimate civilization, backed by a terrifyingly massive military force. Right outside the compound gates, 3,000 hobgoblins are currently drilling in strict formation across a wide-open, dusty training field. They make up 3 full infantry regiments of heavily disciplined, 2-meter-tall elite professional soldiers. Any random baron across the Alpha Kingdom would probably pass out on the spot if they caught a glimpse of this. Even seasoned viscounts could never crush this army in a fair open battle. And hobgoblins never roll solo anyway. Swarms of basic goblins always tag along with them to serve as total cannon fodder. Alongside heavy bugbear shock troops acting as their armored fist, any noble forced to face this brutal combo without high fortress walls might as well draft their last will immediately. This entire army was put together by me after conquering that massive hobgoblin super tribe deep within the desolate wasteland. Over 1,000 fierce hobgoblins and 100 hulking bugbears were housed in just one single settlement, which I then reinforced with more hobgoblins from smaller tribes across the bleak, dusty wasteland. They were scattered from that vast expanse. 3,000 elite warriors were hand-picked by me for my combat squads, while the remaining ones stepped up as managers to oversee various goblin settlements established all over the territory, handling everything from food production organization to basic logistics. Some wild game manages to thrive even in this barren wasteland, along with plenty of edible plants. Plus, certain goblin tribes low-key engage in vegetable farming and also raise small livestock on the side. Everything keeps running smoothly thanks to these management hobgoblins, allowing the warrior hobgoblins to grub down well and train hard like beasts. One critical policy was immediately put into effect by me. Population control was enforced, completely banning regular kobolds and goblins from breeding freely. It sounds harsh AF, I know, but just hear me out for a second right now. Absolute peace grips the wasteland with 0 predators hunting them down and 8 mushroom greater spirit plants, standing tall, pumping out an endless supply of food. If birth restrictions aren't enforced, these creatures would multiply endlessly, just like bacteria, thriving inside a petri dish sitting at a few tens of thousands. The current kobold population is manageable. Without strict caps, by next year that number would rocket past 100,000, and by the year after that, 250,000 goblins would reproduce just as fast. Honestly, what could I even do with hundreds of thousands of weak-ass kobolds? Even when used as cannon fodder, they are way too pathetic to be of any real use. Waiting is what I prefer to do, until the dragon aura properly strengthens their bloodlines, transforming every single individual kobold into someone actually worth a damn. Quality over quantity is the rule. However, the hobgoblins and bugbears are subjected to 0 breeding restrictions, because those absolute units are genuinely valuable in combat. Go ahead and breed away, big fellas, since the upcoming orc wars are gonna need you. Suddenly, a minotaur answering to the name of Cain rushed forward with pure terror written all over his face. Word had reached him that his blood-hoof tribe spotted bear men scouts patrolling during their routine daily herding rounds. An investigation was being launched by the brown bears to find out why their monthly iron ore tribute had stopped showing up. As a matter of fact, the blood-hoof minotaurs never served as the actual owners of those mines, acting merely as collection agents instead, who worked directly for a powerful brown bear tribe settled deeper in the grasslands, where bears reign as orc royalty, standing proudly as one of the ruling species across the entire orc empire. And unfortunately, obvious tracks had been left behind by my minotaurs, as Kodo beasts tipped the scales at 8 massive tons and crashed through nature with the subtlety of a falling asteroid. The bears tracked down their fresh footprints. Poor Cain was low-key shaking in his boots. Within the orc hierarchy, bear men reign supreme as apex predators. Natural-born warriors are found in brown and black bears, alike blessed with terrifying brute strength. Multiple minotaurs could be effortlessly ripped apart by a single bear man without him breaking a single sweat. Visions of his entire tribe getting brutally massacred as payback for switching allegiances haunted Cain's mind. Glancing straight at Cain, I dropped a single word: bears, before I mentally cross-referenced my dragon heritage databanks. Several unique breeds of bearmen populate this chaotic world. Brown bears, along with black bears, dominate the common demographic in the orc empire. Polar bears also roam the frigid far north, while black and white bears inhabit the misty eastern mountains. TBH, those black and white ones have got me way more invested. A profound spiritual connection draws me directly to them. Sadly, those specific guys are completely absent from orc territory. RIP. At least 8 legendary tier warriors answer to the bear tribe, 8 elite powerhouses across their entire species. That is a serious flex, making me wonder if I could take one bear man legend in a fair fight easily. Though could I handle 8 of them simultaneously? that sounds like an absolute nightmare afternoon. Yet, the absolute coolest perk of living life as a gold dragon is knowing I never ride solo. Metallic dragons serving especially as gold dragons represent the ultimate team players, essentially operating as the globe's biggest, most overpowered, mutual defense squad. Mess with a baby gold dragon, and boom, an adult gold dragon pulls up to the scene managed to beat the adult. And you get a VIP ticket to meet an ancient dragon. Somehow pull off a miracle against the ancient. Congrats. You have just unlocked the secret final boss, the platinum dragon god Bahamut in the flesh, who might just deploy an avatar to personally rearrange your entire skeletal structure. This exact networking is why metallic dragons flex on the multiverse, relying not merely on individual combat prowess, but on the ironclad rule that picking a fight with one summons the wrath of all of us. We are easily history's most coordinated gang, the Crips. The Bloods, even the Yakuza, look like total amateurs when lined up next to the Gold Dragon Syndicate. The Neighborhood Watch Association boasts a divine guardian on speed dial who takes bullying way too personally from a certain perspective. We operate as the most massive organized crime syndicate alive, though we mostly just vibe on the side of justice, shielding the defenseless and protecting the innocent, while always trying diplomacy first before throwing hands. It is all very noble and righteous, yet if you choose to ignore common sense and happen to be straight-up evil, we will rock your world, then tag in our squad to jump you again, while you are flat on the ground. Being lawful good does not make anyone a soft pushover, so am I stressing over 8 Bearman legends? Not really, since taking them one-on-one means an easy W. And if they try to run a train on me together, one quick spell drops 15 metallic dragons circling high above and demanding to know who needs a lesson in respecting gold dragon turf. The bear tribe might flex like orc royalty, but even royalty knows better than to mess with dragons backed by an infinite roster. King remains totally clueless about all this. As he stands there trembling in his boots, poor guy genuinely believes we are about to get overrun by an unstoppable army of bear warriors. What he fails to grasp is that his brand new boss is practically tied to the most broken and overpowered support network in the entire universe. Bring on the bears, some fresh sparring partners would actually be nice. And if they decide to bring backup, my backup will be way bigger. So a hilarious thought crossed my mind while killing time waiting for these bears to show. And I ended up casting an alignment detection spell on myself, just for kicks and giggles. Every dragon carries a specific alignment tag, acting essentially as your cosmic personality badge. Gold dragons are typically expected to be lawful good, walking paragons of virtue, acting like winged Boy Scouts. My actual result turned out to be chaotic good. Staring blankly at the floating readout for a solid 10 seconds, chaotic good means my heart is in the right place, but I have zero regard for red tape protocol, or the whole concept of asking for permission before knocking someone out. Standard gold dragons will lecture you for an hour straight before they reluctantly throw down me. I skipped the whole TED talk, sharing that exact same alignment are brass and copper dragons. And honestly, those guys are low-key the absolute class clowns of the metallic dragon squad somehow. My red dragon blood totally warped my moral compass just enough to make me completely unhinged. Lawful evil or lawful neutral was what I actually anticipated, figuring I was a pretty by-the-book guy. Turns out the universe totally disagreed still. Chaotic good works absolute wonders for my master plan, since it makes me low-key terrifying in ways I never even saw coming. Get this? Because here is where the big brain play is. Normal gold dragons are predictable NPCs. Everyone knows diplomacy is always their go-to move, rules get followed, and warnings get handed out. Drop a chaotic good gold dragon into the mix, though, and my next move is pure mystery. Negotiation, a sudden sucker punch, who knows? I might invite you over for dinner only to catch you lacking right during dessert. Pure uncertainty becomes a weapon in itself, and this right here is where it gets totally cracked. Should I ever kick off a brawl, every other metallic dragon will instantly back me up, because metallic dragons are basically hard-coded to ride or die for each other. My chaotic energy could easily drag dozens of otherwise peaceful legendary metallic dragons straight into a war zone they never asked to join. Once enough legendary metallic dragons start throwing hands, even the platinum dragon god Bahamut himself tunes in. Bahamut is basically the ultimate helicopter parent. Someone messes with his kids, and he shows up in person to have a little chat, carrying reality-shattering consequences. That chain reaction would spell absolute disaster for anyone foolish enough to test me. I am essentially a match sitting right next to a powder keg that is somehow duct-taped to a nuclear warhead. Strike that match, and the entire map gets rearranged. Meanwhile, out across the sun-drenched grasslands, the bear men were tracking the heavy footprints of the Minotaur migration. A bear man commander in charge of 1,000 troops was guiding his squad along the glaringly obvious Kodo beast tracks, when something plummeted from the sky straight up, clocking him right on the noggin. A massive glowing golden artifact of mine, an unmistakably genuine dragon scale. Cruising overhead might have caused it to slip off by accident then again. Maybe I dropped it on purpose. Who's to say? Total chaotic good vibes, my true motives remain shrouded in mystery. Even to myself, though the commander managed to live. Solely because dragon scales aren't actually designed to be lethal projectiles, they just hurt like crazy and send a loud message. Snatching up the heavy golden relic, his squad thrust it right into his face the moment his eyes locked onto it. And he felt that legendary dragon aura radiating off it. About 17 distinct emotions flashed across his face. In roughly 2 seconds flat, since this guy is a tier 6 warrior. Far from stupid, he's basically Bearman royalty with actual formal education under his belt. He instantly decoded what a golden dragon scale implies. Any further investigation was completely skipped. Asking 0 questions, he hollered out a retreat order and bolted back toward his tribe at warp speed, leaving his troops struggling just to keep pace. Clueless about what was actually going down, their boss had simply touched a shiny gold object and instantly evolved into an Olympic sprinter. Talk about elite survival instincts, a solid 10 out of 10 for situational awareness. Back at the bear tribe's main camp, the tier 8 chieftain carefully inspected the scale, while absorbing its spine-chilling pressure. For a regular chieftain tangled up with a potential legendary gold dragon situation, this crisis was so far above his pay grade that he pinged the bear royal court without hesitation via an ancient magical communication device. The essence of his message was basically some legendary gold dragon is probably chilling out in the Moselle wasteland right now, and I'd love nothing more than for this to become somebody else's problem. Reading over the incoming report, the bear tribe patriarch let out a deep frown. A legendary gold dragon hiding in that desolate wasteland, packed with iron deposits and useless kobolds. Made 0 logical sense. His pragmatic mindset whispered that it was likely a trap. Perhaps some sneaky red dragon scavenged a gold scale and planted it intentionally to scare the bears away. Those sly red dragons always pull moves like that. Holding a legit gold dragon scale means permanent immunity. Hands down, since literally nobody with half a brain would dare mess with legendary gold dragons. Yet a counterfeit scale pushed by a red dragon, acting all golden, is totally just a low-key bluff. You can totally call out. The patriarch therefore dispatched a pair of legendary bear men to scope things out, not necessarily looking for a throwdown, simply checking if the rumor checked out. As night fell, 2 legendary bear warriors rolled up to the edge of the Moselle wasteland, and I picked up on their presence right away. 2 massive legendary auras were creeping in from the open grasslands. So what was my move? Did I get hyped for a fight? Did I gather my troops? Did I draft up some fancy diplomatic greeting? Nah. I just cast alignment detection on myself all over again, right in plain sight, casually double-checking my own moral compass, while a couple of apex predators stalked me from afar. The bright golden aura of chaotic good flashed across my massive scales, giving off massive neon signs that screamed I am totally unpredictable and packing divine backup. The bear guys quickly verified my scales were 100% real, true gold dragon armor. 0 illusions involved, no cheap disguises, no stolen merchandise. Pure, unadulterated legendary gold dragon. Their very first instinct was to get the heck out of Dodge. Taking down a legendary gold dragon is not just a hard task. It is straight-up suicide. Even if they somehow won, which they totally wouldn't, the fallout would trigger an extinction-level event. Every single metallic dragon across the entire continent would mobilize for absolute payback. Bahamut himself would take a personal interest, and the bear tribe would literally cease to exist as a concept. And then they laid eyes on my actual alignment readout, chaotic good, which made one of them completely freeze up. His mind totally crashed on him like a cheap PC, trying to run too many heavy apps at once. A gold dragon that completely ignores the rulebook. A gold dragon that might throw hands first and skip all the standard polite warnings. A gold dragon tied directly into the most op mutual defense squad in existence, who might pull the entire metallic dragon species into a massive war just because he felt like it on a random Tuesday. His buddy grabbed him by the arm and booked it, shouting out loud, while physically hauling his totally frozen buddy away amidst the chaos. The absolute greatest tactical assessment in military history was blurted out. Run away, because this guy is seriously losing his mind. Every single claim to the Moselle wasteland was totally dropped by them in a split second. Every single mine, iron deposit, and valuable resource that had been continuously harvested through Minotaur proxies for years just vanished. They surrendered completely without throwing a single punch. Ultimately, they figured the Orc grasslands probably held alternative mines somewhere else, where locations were totally unguarded by any unhinged legendary gold dragon backed up by divine forces. and holding a moral alignment that essentially boils down to I do whatever I want. And heaven gives the green light. Watching them sprint away at absolute max speed filled me with a warm and fuzzy glow of satisfaction, not even coming from the victory itself, but purely from the sheer efficiency. Zero combat, zero casualties, and zero effort expended. Two legendary warriors were completely taken down by pure vibes and reputation. My chaotic good alignment has got to be the greatest weapon I have ever wielded. Until today, I did not even realize I had it. The universe actually blessed me with the ultimate personality, built for maximum intimidation while exerting minimum effort. Huge thanks. Mom the Red Dragon genes genuinely came through clutch today, so there I was, just minding my own business in Durham, quietly processing the second batch of 8,000 half-elf slaves, when CLIA pinged me with a message that almost made me choke hard on my own saliva. She genuinely believes she has mutated into a dragon blood sorcerer-like. A dragon blood sorcerer originating from what, exactly? Well, let us really think this through carefully. What on earth could have possibly introduced such high concentrations of dragon magical properties straight into her system? What mysterious substance could she possibly have ingested over and over again during our private bonding sessions, I wonder? Honestly, it is a total medical mystery for the history books. But before I drop that massive bombshell, let me bring you up to speed on what went down back home. The second wave of half-elves finally showed up, bringing along 1,000 professionally trained warriors that I had specifically requested. These incoming soldiers looked totally exhausted, completely demoralized, and thoroughly defeated, which is the absolute prime condition for recruitment. Flashing my peak legendary gold dragon form, I stepped right into the scene and dropped a heavy-duty intimidation speech, making them willingly hand over their independent lives in like 15 seconds flat. Honestly, practice makes perfect, and I am totally speedrunning this. Squeezing out some fresh dragon blood, I watered it down and served it to the half-elf warriors so they could level up into loyal dragon minions. Now this dragon blood conversion isn't some mind control spell. Far from it, actually. Should these warriors have packed genuine power or kept that rebellious fire burning deep inside, the blood would only keep them loyal on my watch while I am standing right there. The second I walk away, those independent thoughts might start creeping back in. Luckily, these guys were already totally broken and compliant, leaving the dragon blood to simply seal the deal and jumpstart their physical upgrades straight into half-dragon territory. Tougher, faster, and straight up better in every single metric. DRAM is currently housing over 10,000 half-elves, with the first batch busy hammering away at new houses, while the second batch grabs heavy farming tools to break ground around the city. Oxen might be missing from our inventory completely, yet Minotaurs stepped up to volunteer for heavy agricultural labor. A massive 2.5-meter-tall bullman pulling a plow beats any ordinary ox by a landslide, honestly. They don't even throw any tantrums either, mostly because my mere presence scares them to death. Fear remains the ultimate performance enhancer in this world. Anyway, getting back to Clea's emergency, Tisna was left behind to guard the territory while I rocketed toward Vern Fortress at max speed. Catching this with my own eyes was a must, given that the implications were completely wild. Let me break down what was going down with Clea. A few days after parting ways with her for the first time, she started spotting weird changes. Her clothes refused to fit properly anymore because she had miraculously shot up 3 centimeters taller. At over 30 years old and way past puberty by at least 15 solid years, grown adults don't just randomly sprout upward. Next thing you know, her skin looked way younger, and I don't mean just well moisturized. She was physically rewinding in age, looking like someone literally rolled back her biological clock. Years later, the absolute plot twist hit hard. While she was chilling by her fireplace, unwinding with her typical peaceful evening routine, sipping red tea, and listening to the wood snap and pop, she gazed into the flames, looking low-key aesthetic and class. Out of nowhere, she totally zoned out this time, and shoved her bare hand straight into the burning fire, reaching right in without a second thought, just like she was grabbing a cookie out of a jar. Yet she felt zero pain or heat. With no burning sensation at all, only a cozy warmth akin to holding a cup of hot cocoa jerked back in pure shock. She stumbled away from the hearth. Her hand remained completely unscathed, without even a single scratch. A veteran silver knight who had battled her whole life had just plunged her bare hand directly into open flames and walked away feeling totally cozy. Such a thing defies normal human biology entirely. This is peak dragon biology, as Clea finally pieced it together. Getting taller while looking noticeably younger, gaining fire immunity, alongside boosted vitality .1, and only explanation here, she had officially awakened as a dragon blood sorcerer, specifically a gold dragon bloodline sorcerer of high caliber. That gold dragon part matters big time given that gold dragons possess total fire immunity. So how did she acquire those gold dragon magical factors? Anyway, straight from me, through repeated and ultra-enthusiastic exposure to all my various biological fluids. To put it simply, she consumed way too much, whether drank or absorbed. The delivery method proved super intimate, and the dosage reached legendary proportions. Great dragon blood sorcerers are notoriously rare and insanely powerful, blending raw physical combat prowess that easily surpasses same-tier knights with spellcasting abilities rivaling actual dragons. They sprout dragon wings alongside tough dragon scales, while unlocking enhanced senses and elemental immunities. It stands tall as one of the most overpowered character classes across this entire world, yet Clea scored it completely by accident just by dating me. I am seriously operating on another level to the point where sleeping with me grants a permanent power-up. Reaching out through a message, she asked what weird changes were happening to her body, prompting me to drop everything and rush over to investigate. Upon arriving right outside her bedroom window, she was standing completely naked before a mirror, checking herself out in the mirror. She casually pivoted around only to spot me standing right there. She low-key blushed for like half a second max, then strolled straight over toward me, acting like it was nothing. Honestly, this woman's ironclad composure is low-key insane, while anyone else would be scrambling to grab a robe. Clea just strutted up and apologized on the spot for being completely unprepared to host my visit, ma'am. You are literally standing right there looking like you just rewinded time back to your early 20s. Trust me, the preparation is plenty sufficient. Firing up my dragon sight, let me run a full internal scan on her. Her entire figure blurred into a translucent outline, resembling a magical X-ray where her form still appeared mostly human, though distinct structural shifts were already visible. The most major alteration was concentrated along her spine. Standard humans rock 33 vertebrae, while true dragons sport 68. Clea already had a single vertebra actively morphing into a brand new wing bone. Dragon blood sorcerers who hit high enough power tiers are bound to sprout actual dragon wings, with the entire process kicking off right at the spine, as it completely restructures itself. She was deep into the foundational kickoff phase of a total skeletal rewrite. Measurable traces of dragon magical factors were now detectable pulsing through her blood. Sure, it wasn't an overwhelming flood, yet it was totally enough to prove the awakening was real and actively leveling up. She is deadass turning into a legit dragon blood sorcerer. This awakening is still in its absolute baby stages, so predicting her exact future abilities is still a guesswork, yet her fire immunity is already locked, and loaded alongside obvious physical buffs. Taking over this sets up a pretty wild scenario. Clea's family tree has zero background in dragon bloodlines. Not a single ancestor has ever held the title of dragon blood sorcerer. Should she randomly pop wings and start breathing fire right in the middle of a council meeting, people gonna start grilling her, firing off hyper-specific and deeply awkward questions about where on earth she managed to secure those dragon genes, leaving behind the hard truth that the provincial governor got way too cozy and intimately involved with a legendary gold dragon undercover, as a frontier knight would trigger roughly 17 massive political scandals right at that moment. Claire caught on to this fact too, and that explains why she slid into my DMs, seeking not just validation for her condition, but a solid cover story to play it safe. A totally bulletproof alibi has to be crafted to explain how a 30-year-old chick with mediocre knight talents out of nowhere got upgraded into one of the rarest magical powerhouses on the entire continent. Honestly, I've got zero clue what lies to feed people should we claim she stumbled upon some ancient, dusty relic, or maybe ingested a sketchy shroom, or got a random blessing from some lost deity. Literally anything goes except the raw truth, which happens to be that my bodily fluids low-key function as high-end performance enhancers of the absolute highest tier. Being a legendary dragon comes with sweet perks I never even saw coming, making me more than just a lord, a fierce warrior, and a political ally. Turns out I am also doubling as a walking chemical enhancement laboratory. Every single romantic hookup has the crazy potential to accidentally spawn new dragon blood sorcerers. This could low-key turn into a trend. And honestly speaking, I am torn between feeling proud or totally stressed. Mainly proud, as I broke it down to Claire, explaining that dragon blood sorcerers vary wildly in power. Some evolve into legendary combatants, even outmatching fully grown dragons, while others barely edge out ordinary humans. Her fire resistance is totally legit, though far from total immunity. She can comfortably toast her hands over a campfire and feel cozy, whereas I can soak in boiling lava like a casual spa day. Talk about a massive gap. Those cobalt scale sorcerers back in my wasteland technically count as dragon blood sorcerers, too, yet they can barely cast like 3 spells before needing a 12-hour nap. So holding that fancy title doesn't mean squat actions speak louder than titles in the end. Hearing this made Claire's face twist into a deep frown, being a total control freak by nature. She gets physically triggered by any form of uncertainty. Her initial hope was that I'd drop lines like "Major congratulations, you're destined to rule as an unstoppable warrior queen" instead. My actual response was maybe you'll grow wings, maybe you just end up with slightly better skin permanently. Nobody has a clue, yet this was low-key not the reassuring verdict she was hoping for. Yet her gaze shifted right to me, and I could low-key picture a light bulb materializing above her head. Whatever sneaky scheme she just cooked up, it definitely meant me crashing for the night. She threw me a dinner invite with sketchy enthusiasm. I figured why not bet on it. I had to drop by Count Snow's place tomorrow anyway to put in an order for more half-elf slaves. 50,000 is a solid flex to kick things off. But I am grinding toward full duchy level territory. Hundreds of thousands of workers are required, and eventually maybe millions of them. Unclaimed wilderness surrounds Durham in every direction, stretching out endlessly as far as the eye can see. As much land as I want is up for grabs. Population is literally the only bottleneck here. Honestly, if I could cop 1 million half-elves right this second, I would pull the trigger without hesitation. Humanity's weird hang-ups regarding demographic balance are things I simply do not share. Humans stress out about having too many non-humans in their turf. Meanwhile, I am straight up a dragon. Everyone else is equally non-dragon in my book, plus half-elves outlive humans by a long shot, rendering them objectively superior long-term employees. Why would I pick a worker who kicks the bucket in 60 years over one who lasts a solid 200? A proper banquet was thrown by Clee that evening. She showed up dressed to the nines in full formal gear, looking absolutely gorgeous under the chandelier lights, which totally tracked with my expectations. Bringing along 2 friends was the plot twist I did not see coming. Lady Anna and Lady Helen walked in wearing matching low-cut evening gowns, obviously picked out to maximize visual impact. In the room, their curtsies delivered a view that was geometrically insane. Deep necklines engineered into what I can only frame as absolute architectural masterpieces of fabric design. White valleys of substantial depth came into view. When you gaze deep into the abyss gazes right back at you. Ancient wisdom has never hit closer to home. Those 2 ladies kept shooting side-eyes in my direction all through the introductions, obviously trying to figure out what my deal was. Word got out that I had picked up a massive batch of half-elf slaves while carving out brand new turf right on the edge of the Orc Empire. Their top theory pegged me as some count or a duke's second-born from the central continent. Then Clea casually strolled over and draped herself against me, letting my hand rest right on her waist without missing a beat, prompting them to instantly upgrade me to a potential prince. Their eyes popped wide open, and I could practically see their gears grinding to a halt. Clea had given them a heads-up earlier that a VIP guest would be dropping by tonight. The standard high society hospitality stuff. What she forgot to mention, though, was that she'd be jumping into the action herself. These 2 women showed up ready to handle the entire evening's entertainment, only to suddenly realize their boss had promoted herself from backstage coordinator straight to the main event. That definitely flips the whole script. Now, let me break down who Anna and Helen actually are, because their backstory is low-key fascinating. Both of them are widowed baronesses whose husbands bought the farm fighting orcs about a decade ago, according to standard inheritance laws. Their daughters are supposed to inherit the titles and lands, except for one major problem. Their kids are girls, and while female nobles aren't technically against the rules in the Alpha Kingdom, they're rare enough that any power-hungry male relative could easily contest the succession. Worse yet, putting a ring on their daughters means snatching up the barony. So every landless lord and spare son across the province was circling like hungry sharks to keep their kids and estates safe from predators. Anna and Helen swore fealty to Clea back before she even rose to Marquis Governor. They brought serious administrative chops to the table along with rock-solid loyalty, while Clea guarded their households from sketchy marriage traps in return, leaving them to run massive chunks of her territory and handle heavy government duties. Clearly, they are way more than just friends. They are her ride-or-die inner circle, her most trusted confidants. And tonight right here, Clea is pulling off a seriously calculated chess move fueled by a scheme she's low-key plotted out for ages, even if she kept it totally under wraps. If my bodily fluids basically turn her into a dragon-blooded witch, then theoretically speaking, according to the lore, repeated exposure means a way more cracked, buffed-up bloodline awakening. The deeper she gets dragged into this whole mess, the more magic juice gets dumped straight into her inner dragon. More juice equals a speedrun to a much crazier evolution. It's literally basic math, except for one massive catch. Clea is still just a rank 5 silver knight at best. Her physical stamina has some painfully obvious walls. Hard caps that she already figured out the hard way during all our previous late-night cardio sessions. And it's plain as day that they aren't even close to handling the massive dose she's craving. She desperately needs some backup and a serious emergency bailout. Some teammates to carry her through, absolute ride-or-dies she trusts blindly to share the heavy lifting, and take some heat off while she's gasping for air trying to catch her breath between rounds. Enter Anna and Helen, hand-picked strictly for their loyalty-stunning looks and pristine physical builds. Long story short, Clea just successfully tricked her inner circle of besties into a secret program for waking up dragon bloodlines, all disguised nicely as a fancy upscale dinner party. The one major blind spot in her master plan is that Anna and Helen are just normal human girls who haven't survived a single day of combat training. At least a silver knight can grit their teeth and push through legendary tier intensity for a little while. Meanwhile, ordinary high society ladies definitely lack that kind of insane endurance. Claire's face then looked super stressed out, clearly sweating bullets over whether her best friends could actually handle the scorching heat coming their way. She looked straight up like a panicked coach, throwing a bunch of total rookies blindly into a high-stakes championship finals match. Glancing over at the two gorgeous noblewomen standing frozen in their meticulously chosen evening gowns, amidst a suffocatingly tense vibe, packed with awkward, unspoken curiosity, I then pivoted my gaze back to Clea, who was gracefully feeding me bite-sized chunks of monster steak with a fork while smoothly wiping away a rogue smudge of sauce near the corner of my mouth with a silk napkin. She batted her eyes and sweetly asked if I was digging these gifts. Gifts, can you believe that? She's literally calling those people gifts. Folks, the golden dragon blood coursing through my veins started throwing red flags, whispering that this situation crossed some serious ethical lines, and maybe we should sit down to draw some firm boundaries and draft a mutual consent framework while we're at it. My inner red dragon blood stayed totally silent, because it was too caught up hyping my chaotic good alignment, telling me every single person here is a consenting adult making totally informed choices, so I should stop overthinking and just vibe with this amazing dinner. Giving equal weight to all three viewpoints was my choice, which practically meant I completely checked out of thinking and dove straight into devouring that insanely good monster steak, while two baronesses and one marquis worked hard not to look at me too obvious. Quite an eventful morning was waiting right around the corner, though that is a tale for another time. Right now I will simply point out that Chloe's strategic mastermind level is totally world-class, as she spotted a solid power source, calculated her own personal limitations, pulled together the right support squad, and flawlessly executed the plan less than 24 hours after discovering it. Running a military campaign would be a breeze for her if she ever gets bored of governing, or she could launch a super unique business. Nearing almost noon when Kyle finally opened her eyes, she instantly realized the bed had somehow shrunk, not because the mattress actually shriveled up overnight, but due to holding 4 people instead of just one. Making a mental note to buy a bigger bed was her first move, that is peak prioritizing and forward thinking. Right there with me lying right next to her on one side, while Anna and Helen were tightly snuggled on the other, sleeping peacefully like a couple of kittens, surviving a total storm, which metaphorically speaking they totally had. Furniture shopping wasn't really what was on Clay's mind, though she was dying to find out if her dragon bloodline had leveled up big time following last night's hardcore energy-absorbing session. Stepping up as a dragon blood sorcerer isn't just about scoring massive combat stats, it seriously boosts your overall lifespan too. Living as a standard silver knight would normally net her maybe 120 years max, whereas dragon blood sorcerers start at a massive 300 years minimum, giving you Tier 8 Sky Knight longevity vibes without needing Tier 8 brute strength, while legendary dragon blood sorcerers are rumored to push past thousands of years of life. For a woman staring down a massive inevitable orc apocalypse, scoring a few extra centuries of life sounds totally low-key fire. Later in her study, Clea was draped across my lap, with her arms wrapped tightly around my neck, barely conscious, and completely slumped over me like high-end velvet drapes. I totally saw right through why she staged last night's whole vibe. There was zero romance involved. She was literally farming dragon magic factors like some sweat lord grinding XP in an MMO grindfist. Yet I completely played dumb, because let's be real, Clea has low-key been insanely clutch for me. Whenever my kobold minds needed mushroom spirit bugs ASAP, she tracked them down at breakneck speed. She even traded away some of the Hall of Ven family's own prized spirit bugs and rare insects for them. That kind of serious hustle definitely warrants a massive flex, so I dropped a quest on her to bring me a minor spirit that had been maturing for at least 20 years along with its host plant before sundown, and I promised to buff it into a greater spirit, as her payout. Clea was so super exhausted that she totally zoned past my words. Blinking slowly at me with heavy, sleep-deprived eyes, I gave her a quick motivational tap right on her backside and bam. She was wide awake instantly. It is honestly wild how fast fatigue completely vanishes. Once a greater spirit upgrade is on the line, her eyes lit right up, as if someone had plugged her directly into a live outlet. After a quick moment of deep thought, she picked a wheat miner spirit for the evolutionary jump safe. Predictable choices, aiming for maximum food output. She briefly weighed her peanut and cabbage spirits, but ultimately opted against taking any sketchy risks when a tried-and-true wheat blueprint was right there. That was a big brain move, since it was peak spring planting season, meaning buffing the wheat spirit right now would guarantee the Hall of Venn family an absolute record-shattering harvest come autumn extra grain. Translates directly to more soldiers she can feed and drill within this brutal slave-driven kingdom. Military budgets aren't really about fancy weapons or heavy armor. It all comes down to chow. Feed your troops and you command an army, starve them out, and you're looking at a full-on riot. She gladly scooped up the reward with maximum enthusiasm, already mapping out in her head how this year's massive surplus would totally level up her entire military might, rocking this fitted black dress with a thigh-high slit. She hopped right up onto the desk and totally served looks that could scheme 17 things at once, peering down at me with eyes that were low-key plotting a whole master plan. Crafted from a central continent design, that dress was meticulously knocked off by her family's private tailor, even though putting on outfits like this wasn't really her vibe before she only started rocking these fits. Ever since we crossed paths and things kicked off between us, choosing to take that as a major W for my fashion sense, instead of some calculated thirst trap strategy on her part, even though, let's be real, it was definitely giving both vibes at the same time. Prior to scoring that whole spirit evolution reward drop, CLIA had Loki been low-key side-eyeing my behavior, as super ungolden, giving off major undragon energy. Gold dragons in the lore are always portrayed as noble, restrained, and diplomatic AF, meaning they definitely don't pull the kind of unhinged stunts that I was casually pulling right there on top of her workspace desk. Yet right after pocketing another free greater spirit, she decided she literally didn't give a damn what kind of dragon I actually was, because getting the bag always beats out boring labels. She was seriously a pragmatist straight out of my own playbook, while she was busy having her deep philosophical awakening right there. I was just chilling and holding her foot, while her mind was entirely locked onto one main thought: locking down this dragon at all costs is priority number one. The Horovin bloodline desperately needs every ounce of backup I can hand over if they actually expect to survive the upcoming orc invasion wave. Holding a title like Border Marquis sounds totally elite and fancy, until you finally realize it translates to your family acting as cannon fodder for a solid 2 centuries straight, and sitting on nothing more than raw military muscle and crushing debt. Southern Earls holding a fraction of that prestige are somehow way richer and living safer lives. The Hallraven name might carry loads of honor and heavy responsibilities, but it brings in barely any actual cold hard cash. CLIA is dead set on flipping that script completely, and I happen to be her absolute best bet to make it happen, making my way down to the slave market that afternoon to secure another batch of half-elves. I found out Count Snow wasn't even around. Rumor had it he was currently up in the Alpha Kingdom capital, grinding out field sales outreach, since he still had massive corporate quotas left to crush. Having existed for over a millennium, the half-elf kingdom boasts a massive history where half-elves reproduce at speeds practically matching regular humans, pushing their total headcount well into the tens of millions. So my bulk order of 54,000 was basically a rounding error on their spreadsheets. Snow definitely needed to move way higher volume than that to hit his targets. Leaving a quick message with the floor manager instead, I dropped the order for another 50,000 units, pushing my grand total up to over 100,000 half-elf workers right now. That headcount sounds wild for any baron or viscount out there, yet for someone eyeing a duke's title, it is still way too low to build an empire. The untamed wilderness surrounding Durham goes on forever. Thousands of square kilometers are mine for the annexing, and the sole bottleneck standing in my way is just scoring enough bodies to develop it. If a million half-elves were available today, I would cop every single one of them. Plus, I completely skip out on humanity's freakout over racial demographics. Humans stress hard about having too many non-humans inside their borders. That anxiety makes zero sense to my brain. Being a dragon means every other species is equally not a dragon. Half-elves actually outlive normal humans by a lot, averaging around 120 years, which makes them low-key superior long-term investments. Why hire a worker who kicks the bucket in 60 years when you can grab one lasting twice as long for the same exact price? That is basic economics regarding Rodland's massive flex to completely wipe out the half-elf kingdom and level up their status into a full empire. I honestly feel like they are overplaying their hand. Rodland occupies the dead center of the central continent, boasting tens of millions of square kilometers of turf. Alongside hundreds of millions of citizens, they definitely outmuscle the half-elf kingdom easily. But conquering a nation and fully digesting it are two totally different achievements. The surrounding central continent kingdoms will never just stand by, while Rodland scales up unchecked. Geopolitics gets instantly messy whenever a country tries to swallow another whole. Not my circus, though, since I just want cheap labor delivered right to my doorstep. Whatever random wars and politics go down on the central continent are pure background noise to me. I am a dragon playing hardcore city builder out on the northern frontier. My main worries are spring planting schedules, blast furnace efficiency, kobold population control, and whether client needs a bigger bed. She definitely requires a much bigger bed, so I should probably commission one myself, something built dragon-sized, featuring reinforced framing for structural safety. Before diving into the juicy details, let me drop a quick geopolitical hot take right before we hit the really exciting stuff. The half-elf kingdom is targeted for total destruction by Rodland, so they can level up into a full empire, which is honestly a cute little plan, except for one tiny little flaw, seeing as the half-elf kingdom actually exists specifically, because it was carved out as a strategic buffer zone by the true elves hailing from the Silver Moon Forest as a protective barrier. Should Rodland overplay their hand and drive the half-elf kingdom to the brink of collapse, those pure-blooded elves will step right in to throw hands. Seeing that immortality is kind of their thing, they have spent countless millenniums passively collecting legendary warriors and absolute master mages, simply by breathing. Their military forces consist entirely of elite knights and powerhouse spellcasters. Because when you live forever, everyone eventually turns into an absolute beast. An all-out war between the elf kingdom and Rodland would drag its feet, likely dragging down every single nation scattered across both the central and southern continents, with humans rallying behind Rodland and other races backing the elves up. Back when the Orc Empire pulled this stunt 2 centuries ago, it damn near flipped the entire globe upside down. Call it a hunch, but I can totally feel a massive continent-wide war cooking right now, though. Hey, that is basically the bread and butter of Ional War anyway, featuring endless warfare punctuated by brief, awkward pauses of nervous peace. Thankfully, that is not on my plate right now, as I have got plenty of spring planning keeping me busy. Stepping away from Vernon Fortress, Helen and Anna apparently crumpled in sheer relief the second I cleared out of their surviving 2 whole nights hanging out with a legendary dragon, left them feeling like their physical shells had just been thrown through a heavy-duty industrial blender. Yet according to the whispers CLIA dropped me, they were also low-key crossing their fingers for a round 2 invitation talk about sending mixed signals. Ladies, seriously mixed signals. And Anna tried grilling CLIA for details regarding my true identity. She got instantly shut down via blunt time to work memo delivered loud and clear. My background is way above their security clearance level anyway. They played it cool and accepted it. Though I can bet you anything they are staying up all night staring at the ceiling, busy drafting wild conspiracy theories, over which secret royal bloodline I actually crawled out from. Meanwhile, back over at Durham, things were tracking along wonderfully. A ton of land had already been tilled by the half-elves, while I was off handling diplomatic business with the provincial governor. Heavy clearing duties were being crushed by the Minotaurs, since those absolute units always have power to spare up north. Construction on the horse ranch wrapped up, and purple alfalfa seeds were already planted in the dirt. Thanks to the Greater Spirit giving growth a major boost, the first harvest drops in 70 days following that. I raided the Centaur tribes for horses, so everything was totally on schedule. Then I caught something unexpected regarding the brand new settlements my architect had been putting up around Durham. Residential villages for the overflow population were what I had specifically asked him to build. A totally standard request for some houses, maybe a well, and a command post to top it off, just basic stuff instead. What ended up getting dropped were 400-meter square compounds, each one completely fenced in by 8-meter high and 4-meter thick walls without exception. These weren't sleepy villages at all, but low-key miniature fortresses completely on his own accord. My architect decided that every single settlement across my territory needed to function as a defensible strong point. Staring him down, I watched him nervously explain that armed with thick walls and a tiny local militia, each settlement could easily fend off orc raids on its own. When a full-scale invasion goes down, that whole grid of fortified villages transforms into a linked defense network that stalls the enemy push while keeping civilians safe. My mouth opened to question if the guy had lost his mind, then snapped shut, because he was making total sense. This is the wild northern frontier after all. Open, unfortified villages are basically a free snack for raiding parties, making every single settlement a micro-castle. Is genius. So apparently, normal villages do not exist in my territory, leaving only an interconnected grid of miniature fortresses. My domain is giving less of a peaceful farmland vibe, and more of a hardcore military base vibe that happens to grow wheat on the side as soon as Tisna. And the dragon elves have some free time. I am totally getting them to cast hardening spells on all the walls for maximum durability, because fortress farming is now officially a brand new agricultural meta, dropping by the Mozal wasteland, was my next stop to check on operations. Everything is totally vibing and running smooth, with kobolds hitting the mines and hobgoblins grinding hard minotaurs haul heavy loads, while blast furnaces roar away. This whole industrial setup is Loki thriving. Feeling super chill, I staked out a spot in an open area right outside the Bloodfang camp, since my epic dragon castle is still just a draft on paper. The top dog, and most powerful being around right now, just takes a nap on the raw dirt looking like a massive golden mountain. Spotting me from all the way across the settlement, the kobolds totally went buck wild with their productivity. Literally, nothing hits quite like your god taking a snooze. Meanwhile, the hobgoblins staying true to their pro status. Pro that they are just kept right on drilling without missing a beat. Unshakable discipline through. And through. Then out of nowhere, a seriously wild moment popped up. I reached deep into my pocket dimension and pulled out a glowing golden seed. This mysterious seed has been with me ever since I hatched, occupying the sole spot inside my tiny half-plane storage vault, a micro-dimension measuring roughly 1 acre across, which exclusively houses supernatural flora and nature spirits. Absolutely zero gold and zero loot can live in there, and plant-born entities are the only living things allowed. It is majorly useful for gardening, but completely useless for banking. That very same golden seed is the OG resident of that realm, representing my ultimate white whale and my biggest headache. All through the past 50 years, I have tried every single trick to coax it into sprouting. Over 1,000 drops of premium moonlight juice have been poured into it, yes, a full 1,000 drops, even though each single drop can boost a normal tree straight to ancient status, or evolve a tiny spirit bug into a mighty greater spirit. Enough magical fertilizer to grow an entire forest was dumped onto this seed, yet it just sat there soaking up everything like a golden black hole, never showing a sprout, and never actually dying off, just draining my juice while giving nothing back. Still, I kept pushing because the seed kept accepting the liquid. If it were truly dead, or completely inert as a rock, it would have totally rejected the magical fluid. The simple fact that it drank it all down meant something complex was cooking inside, even if that process moved at a snail's pace. So every few weeks I would casually splash a few more drops onto it, scan for any changes, give a shrug, and carry on with my day. Legendary dragons are built to live for millennia after all, so having patience is definitely not in our DNA, though it has low-key become a total lifestyle now. Something definitely felt different, as the seed looked way brighter, and way more alive, practically pulsing with vitality, giving off an energy I had never picked up on before. Faint yet entirely distinct, just like a heartbeat kicking back in after years of total silence, prompting me to claw out a tiny pit with emotions so deeply ingrained, it was pure muscle memory to drop the seed inside before pouring 10 drops of moonlight juice over it. Countless times over the past 50 years, I have run this exact ritual by planting the seed, adding the juice, and waiting only for nothing to happen, leading me to dig it right back up and try again next month. Though this time around, the seed finally sprouted after half a century, and following upwards of 1,000 accumulated drops of moonlight essence. Past all those failed attempts that led nowhere, a minuscule golden shoot managed to push through the dirt, stretching upward toward the sky, as I stared straight at it, while the sprout stared right back, leaving neither of us with any clue what our next move should be. What exact sort of tree could possibly emerge from a golden seed, demanding 50 full years along with 1,000 drops of legendary dragon moonlight juice just to wake up? I honestly haven't got the foggiest idea, since my ancestral dragon heritage gives me zero answers, providing no records, zero legends, and absolutely no references, making this completely uncharted territory. Whatever this mysterious thing turns into eventually, it is bound to end up as either the most magnificent tree the world has ever laid eyes on, or the most insanely expensive houseplant ever grown by anyone. Either way, I am fully locked in now. After 50 solid years of investment into this project, this stubborn seed definitely owes me some answers. So grow already, you gorgeous little golden mystery, and reveal your true form after 10 drops of moonlight juice. Finally coax the golden seed into sprouting after 50 long years, leaving just one tiny green shoot sticking out of the soil, giving off the vibe of checking if the world was even worth the effort. My absolute thrill lasted for roughly 30 seconds max, before the harsh reality hit me like a massive falling boulder. Given that 10 drops only managed to produce 5 cm of growth, while my yearly output hovers around 300 drops total, where a huge chunk naturally goes towards sustaining myself alongside growing blood orchids to support my nights, and maintaining all my other spirit plants, properly leaving whatever is left over to be poured into this seed, making me seriously start questioning things at this absorption rate, wondering if my epic dragon lifespan would actually hold out long enough to witness this thing turn into a real tree. Is seriously low-key terrifying for someone who can rack up thousands of. What kind of flora takes literal eons just to sprout, while I was totally spiraling into this deep existential gardening panic? That little seedling suddenly pulled a weird move. The dead wasteland dirt all around it suddenly burst forth with vibrant green grass, brand new healthy turf, radiating outward in a circle straight from the sprout, like an absolute shock wave of pure fertility. Dead soil is basically the calling card of the Mozal wasteland, where nothing ever grows on its own, yet this tiny 5-centimeter baby plant was casually terraforming the whole area. Simply by existing, as I scrambled up and stared down at my claws, I realized I was standing right in a miniature meadow that wasn't even there a minute ago. That little sprout swayed cheerfully in the bright sunlight, looking like a happy toddler waving at its folks. I locked eyes with the sprout, and it stared right back at me. We shared a vibe before a blinding green glow flashed across the plant, and my vision went totally dark. Roughly 1 month later is when I finally came to spending a whole consecutive month taking an accidental dirt nap in my full dragon form, while my entire territory leveled up completely without me. I was literally knocked out cold right beside a tiny sprout. Had any enemy launched an ambush during that window, they would have stumbled upon a massive 200-meter legendary golden dragon, napping soundly like a sleepy house cat next to a tiny glowing seedling. That hilarious sight alone would have totally made the trip worth it as awareness slowly trickled back. The very first realization hit me that something fundamental had shifted. My internal cultivation level remained exactly where it was inside my body, still stuck at low legendary tier, and nowhere close to mid-legendary. Yet a brand new element now pulsed through my core, something completely bonkers. 3 points of natural divinity. Every single scale on my massive frame locked up, completely frozen. It took my ancient dragon brain several full seconds to process what my senses were reporting, because the information feeding into my mind made zero sense whatsoever. Divinity forms the very core of all deities. Sacred entities, such as the phoenix and the feathered serpent, carry this divine essence. And these creatures stand so far above standard biology that measuring dragons against them feels like holding dragons up to common earthworms. The phoenix wields literal resurrection magic, while feathered serpents hit legendary status the second they reach adulthood, without needing any training whatsoever. We are talking about beings whose very life force completely shatters mortality, yet somehow, against all odds, 3 distinct points of natural divinity had smoothly flowed right into my physical body, while I was just taking a completely unplanned catnap, curled up next to some sketchy-looking plant. Just like that, I had turned into a divine entity, a full-blown dragon packed with godly energy. This should honestly be flat-out impossible throughout the entire multiverse. Dragons are simply not wired to absorb divinity directly. It genuinely does not matter how overpowered you get. Legendary dragons still get tagged as mortals. Anything sitting below actual godhood remains strictly mortal. There is literally no upgrade path from dragon to godhood by conventional means. Yet here I stood, undeniably and impossibly radiating divine power. The perks kicked in right off the bat. Every single defensive resistance I held got a massive buff, boosting magic resistance, physical resistance, negative energy resistance, and mental attack defense through the absolute roof. This lines up perfectly with what I know about divine beings. They all pack totally ridiculous defensive stats. Trying to slap a curse on a godlike entity is pretty much like trying to punch the open ocean shore. Technically, you can throw the punch, but practically you achieve 0 results because this specific gift happened to be pure natural divinity, my druid magic. Got an insane, game-changing amplification. Every single nature spell I whipped up would hit significantly harder now, meaning my summon natural ally spell, which used to just pull decent elemental helpers, now held the insane potential to call forth legendary tier elemental lords. The heavy hitters, the exact kind that can level entire cities. If I happen to know a specific elemental lord on a personal level, I can even summon them directly by name, just like calling up a buddy, except my buddy's a sentient hurricane the size of a mountain. No cap. Alternatively, rather than summoning just one legendary elemental, I could use the exact same spell to conjure a whole squad of lesser elementals. Need 100 water elementals for a siege. Say less. Done. Need 200 earth elementals to build fortifications. Coming right up. Absolutely clutch. My construction and military capabilities just scaled up by a ridiculous factor. Mother Nature herself also started treating me like her favorite child. Plants thrive way better whenever I'm around. Wild animals feel way more chill. My health regen speed got a massive, substantial boost, and my already insane lifespan got stretched out even further. Certain types of nasty, hostile magic now simply bounce right off me. Totally useless. Location tracking spells can't find me at all. Any curses just dissolve on contact. Any divination or mental intrusion attempt trips an automatic warning system in my head. I've basically become super annoying to fight against, yet the biggest burning question remained totally unanswered. Where did that divinity even come from? That golden seed had been chilling in my dimensional pocket ever since I hatched. I fed it over 1,000 drops of moonlight juice, and across 50 years it finally sprouted, made some grass grow, flashed bright green, and then knocked me clean out for a whole month. Throughout that month-long slumber, 3 points of natural divinity somehow integrated smoothly right into my physical body, without any rejection or nasty complications. Did the seed actually give me the divinity? Did it just unlock something already dormant deep inside me? Were those 1,000 drops of moonlight juice over 50 years Loki a secret ritual I was performing without even realizing it? I had zero answers, and my dragon heritage knowledge contained absolutely zero references to golden seeds granting divinity. This was totally uncharted territory. Meanwhile, Dyrm had kept right on booming. While I was taking my nap, all 50,000 first-order half-elves had safely arrived. The second order was partially delivered too. Living their best life. Count Snow hadn't even asked for a deposit on the new batch, because apparently my credit score as a legendary gold dragon is completely flawless. 20-some fortified little villages now encircle the main city, all neatly linked by massive stone roads. Vibe-wise, it felt way more like a thriving southern trading hub, rather than some sketchy, low-key frontier settlement. Training on the weapon forging system's assembly line was practically wrapped up by the half-elf craftsmen with sharp focus in their tired eyes. Growth across the territory was blowing up so fast that my month-long ghosting hardly made a dent, keeping the half-elves on their best behavior. Was all thanks to Tisna taking each newbie batch on a field trip to gaze at my massive sleeping dragon form, alongside my massive armies of hobgoblins and kobolds. Nothing screams welcome to your brand new home quite like parading terrified immigrants past a mountain-sized dragon backed by thousands of hardcore monster soldiers. My gaze drifted down to that tiny golden sprout which was still chilling right beside me. Stubbornly small and deeply mysterious, while completely ghosting any attempts at an explanation. Yet one solid fact was locked in my mind now. Whatever this plant actually turns into, it's gonna be totally worth every single drop. Dropping 3 whole divinity points on a trade for 1,000 drops of moonlight juice definitely takes the crown as the ultimate ROI throughout the entire history of the multiverse. My inner red dragon blood is finally fully satisfied with this purchase, even if it technically costed me nothing. So let me break it down and explain what 3 points of natural divinity actually bring in practical, everyday terms, since my brain is low-key still processing this massive upgrade. Before scoring that divinity, I was just a low-tier legendary dragon, pretty strong. Sure, though pushing any further would demand centuries of intense grinding. Gold dragons always slam straight into a brutal wall past the legendary tier. The road climbing upward is notoriously steep, painfully slow, and leaves most dragons plateaued for millennia. Normally, if I just tracked down a cozy cave and took a nice nap for a few hundred years, I would eventually wake up sitting at Holy Domain tier, or higher. What that divinity did was essentially shatter the upper ceiling, holding back my growth. My actual combat power has already doubled in output, even without a single rank increase on paper, purely thanks to stacked resistance boosts and massive buffs to my nature magic amplification. Those 2 legendary bear men who dipped out last month. If they dared to pull up today, I could absolutely clap them both at the exact same time, completely, effortlessly, without breaking a sweat. Back a month ago, that would have been a total sweat fest. Nowadays, it's basically just a chill morning stretch. Standing at a mere 5 centimeters tall, that tiny golden sprout refuses to grow. Zero visible progress after a whole month of chilling out. Yet as my gaze lingered on her, and yeah, I'm totally calling the little green bean her now, seeing how she's low-key packed with major vibes. A genuine wave of pure warmth and fuzzy affection flowed straight out of that tiny plant. She swayed gracefully in the breeze like she was throwing up a casual peace sign. Just looking at her felt like staring at the literal heart of Mother Nature herself. SHR unked down into a tiny 5-centimeter package of green. Honestly, it's completely mind-blowing. 3 extra days were spent just lounging right beside her upon that cozy little meadow she had whipped up, while I got used to my fresh new god-tier powers. Right through those 3 days, my leveled-up Summon Natural Ally spell got put to the ultimate test, pulling a legendary tier wind elemental lord straight out of the elemental plane and into reality. That massive, living tornado took one quick glance in my direction, sensed my newly awakened divine aura, and basically went, "Bet, I'm down to work for you." We locked in a contract right then and there on the spot. Future summons are going to be a direct line, with barely any maintenance required. A legendary air force is now sitting comfortably on my speed dial. Just one quick phone call brings a raging hurricane straight to the scene to completely rewrite the entire battlefield layout. My military loadout has gotten ridiculously overpowered. When I finally dragged myself away from that meadow, the little sprout gave me a quiet little farewell sway. No clinginess, no blinding green flashes, and zero sudden knockouts this time. Just a sweet, simple dance in the breeze. I'm out here catching serious emotional attachment to a plant that's barely 5 centimeters tall, and honestly, I am totally at peace with it. She hooked me up with pure divinity, so she can drink all the moonlight juice she wants until the end of time. Heading back inside the walls of Durham, Tisna literally body-tackled me the second I stepped through the gates. Throughout my entire month-long beauty sleep, she had been haunting my unconscious body night after night, keeping watch until the sun came up before reluctantly heading off to handle territorial business. Avila and Emily pulled the exact same routine, with the 3 dragon elf girls taking turns standing guard over their knocked-out dragon boss. Not gonna lie, it's pretty wholesome. Tisna planted a kiss on me with so much chaotic enthusiasm she spun around until she was totally dizzy with her head resting right on my shoulder, and her gaze totally glazed over. She whispered that something about me felt totally different. Her instincts and spirit senses were totally picking up on my natural divinity, which Loki made her want to cuddle up way closer to me, though honestly, as if she ever needed an excuse. This girl was already glued to me 24/7, clinging on tight like a koala with separation anxiety. She ended up dragging me off to her office. Yep, you heard that right. My tiny dragon elf Loli actually has an office because she is the big-shot chief administrator of Durham now, though. Don't let those twin pigtails and her tiny height fool you for a second. This girl runs an entire territory single-handedly, with the cold, hard efficiency of a corporate executive. Planting herself right on my lap, she gave me a full debrief on everything that went down while I was totally knocked out cold. All 50,000 First-Order half-elves had safely arrived and were completely settled in, while the Second Order was already rolling in wave after wave. Count Snow dropped by in person to collect his payment, and apparently spent his entire visit looking like a totally lost tourist who had accidentally wandered into the completely wrong dimension. Between the pristine stone roads and the towering city walls to the fortress villages, and the spotless cleanliness, Durham proudly boasts zero animal or human waste on any of its streets. Snow genuinely thought he had stumbled straight into an ancient elves, seeing how across the entire world only elves ever maintained that insane level of urban hygiene, and that was strictly because they genuinely loved being spotless. Dwarves technically pulled that off too, but only because their cities were tucked away safely deep inside mountains, meaning if they didn't manage their waste properly back there, their enclosed caverns would just marinate in absolute filth until the stench literally achieved sentience. The absolute biggest news from Tisna involved the White Raven Knight Order, because while I was fast asleep, she had successfully organized 4,000 half-elf warriors into a legit military unit and kicked off their training in White Raven swordsmanship. White Raven stands as an absolute legend across the entire multiverse, reigning as one of the 3 supreme sword disciplines right alongside Steel Soul and Iron Heart. Yet unlike those other 2 options, White Raven isn't about flexing solo dueling power at all. This combat system relies entirely on tactical commands, unit formations, and synchronized strikes drive the flow. Flanking maneuvers and position swaps keep enemies guessing. Mutual cover and squad-wide stat buffs change the game completely. A lone White Raven swordsman is honestly pretty decent. Drop 100 of them into formation, and they become an absolute vibe check machine. 1,000 of these warriors form a force so cracked professional armies will seriously question their life choices, having already grasped basic White Raven techniques back in their homeland. The half-elf warriors brought a solid foundation. That base was leveled up by Tisna through precise instruction, and my personal stash of golden vein blood orchids. The earliest recruits have already broken through to official knight rank effortlessly. Apprentice knight rank is the bare minimum for the newest edition's 4,000 coordinated fighters, leveraging advanced formation combat techniques, running on high-tier supernatural resources, and scaling up in power day by day. This is Loki turning into a legitimately terrifying military powerhouse. 500 elite half-dragon guards now make up Dryam's regular army corps, alongside 4,000 White Raven Knights backing them up in full force. Patrolling militia units have also been assigned to every fortified village, keeping local security locked down and guarding the precious spirit plants spread across the whole territory. Spring planting is finally wrapped up. Greater spirit variants of wheat and barley are now cultivated across all agricultural sectors. This coming autumn's harvest is bound to be massive, right? Then Tisna dropped a piece of news that instantly caught my attention. Clea had dispatched multiple messages while I was away from home, and tucked inside was crucial intel regarding cloud giants. The Hall of Ven family's intelligence network had successfully tracked down active cloud giants lurking in the Night Kingdom, situated right on the central continent. Following weeks of scouring through every single contact, every reliable informant, and allied aristocratic house, they finally caught a solid break, because cloud giants are notoriously hard to trail, nesting high up on jagged mountain peaks and floating sky islands, while living entirely isolated in tiny family clans. Locating them demands massive intelligence operations, paired with sheer relentless determination. Clea had thrown her family's entire resource pool into the search, since the reward I put on the table, consisting of more spirit evolutions, was worth turning every stone upside down across the entire continent. I mentally jotted down a reminder to drop by Clea's place soon, partly to chat about the cloud giant intel she snagged, partly to evolve another spirit for her just like I promised, and hey, partly because she's probably ordered that bigger bed by now, since top-tier strategic planning demands peak comfort. My whole domain went from a total ghost town to a buzzing civilization, all in roughly 2 months of heavy grinding. Right now, I'm rocking a walled city, over 20 fortress hamlets, and a heavy-duty mining complex run by kobolds and hobgoblins, plus a pro-knight order and divine powers I totally lacked 8 weeks ago, not to mention a sketchy gold plant that might low-key be some kind of nature deity seedling. Honestly, not bad at all for a dragon who just wanted to chill and LARP as a lord. Seriously, not bad. Clea's intelligence network managed to sniff out cloud giants in the absolute last place I'd ever look: Britannia, the Night Kingdom itself. Let me break Britannia down for you, because these folks are straight-up terrifying in the most hype, respectable way possible. Situated on the western side of the central continent, Britannia sits directly south of the Alpha Kingdom. It is basically one massive, endless flat plain, and that exact geography spawned the most broken cavalry civilization on the map. Their crowning glory, the Grail Knight Order, holding down the fort. We're talking barely 100 members, with every single one built different as a legendary knight. Let that sink in. 100 walking legends in a single squad. Most kingdoms would consider themselves lucky to host a dozen legendary warriors in total. Yet Britannia fields 100 of them, saddled up on war horses and gripping heavy lances. Back 2 centuries ago, when the Orc Empire nearly wiped out the Alpha Kingdom, the Grail Knights were the first to roll up on the scene. The Orcs originally thought their elite behemoth units, heavy bear men and rhino men, could easily crush some human cavalry forces, but they were catastrophically mistaken. Those Grail Knights carved right through Orc elite lines like a lawnmower slicing through wet tissue paper. Tens of thousands of the Empire's most vicious fighters got wiped out in massive waves, along with entire behemoth legions and heavy bearman brigades. Entire lineman battalions got utterly wiped out in single charges. Silver tier or higher was the minimum rank for their vanguard knights, with each single warrior easily capable of skewering a massive behemoth infantryman straight on their lance, just like a shish kebab roasting over an open fire right after finishing off those legendary orcs in brutal duels. These flexers, known as living saints, casually butchered every remaining green skin in sight surrounding the Alpha Kingdom capital. The local farmlands somehow enjoyed insane harvests for years following the battle, thanks to prime organic crop fertilizer derived directly from pulverized orcs. You see, as for the current behemoth beast, its emperor's head got paraded back home as a major flex trophy, sweeping the orcs all the way from the capital gates back deep into the open grasslands in one continuous, non-stop route. It was basically a core-shattering, lifetime trauma for an entire species. Fascinating lore surrounds the very source of Grail Knight power, devoted entirely to the Lady of the Lake, a goddess whose actual earthly divine dimension is nestled right inside Britannia. Leaving behind all worldly possessions is mandatory for a Tier 8 Sky Knight who wants to graduate into a Grail Knight and embark on a grueling holy quest. Each aspirant receives a heavy divine mission from the lady, demanding months or even years of pure grind. Brutally punishing difficulty defines these quests, requiring solo raids into wicked dragon dens or fierce boss fights against abyss demons, leaving most knights completely broken upon failure. Returning to the lady's sacred realm is reserved for the rare few who succeed, where they meet her avatar and take a sip from the Holy Grail. Stat buffs like insane resistances are unlocked by the Grail water, along with a beefed-up constitution, an extended lifespan, plus enough holy stats to drive any enemy spellcaster nuts. Mages literally consider running into a Grail Knight their absolute worst nightmare. An exact headcount of living Grail Knights remains a total mystery to everyone. That 100 estimate simply stems from an old sighting. Where 80 of them showed up 2 centuries ago, the actual numbers are probably way higher in reality, considering the lady has been crafting these powerhouses for a very long time, which I happen to know firsthand because I crossed paths with a female knight on her quest back during my own wandering days. A genuinely nice person who loved talking non-stop about her fate and stabbing everything else in sight without hesitation. So that is why it caught my attention when Clea dropped the news. Britannia is surprisingly chill when it comes to dragons. Deep inside the kingdom lies a city named Gabriel, governed directly by an actual legendary golden dragon, alongside dozens of adult metallic dragons taking up permanent residence there. The rules are low-key simple, so after some deep thought I winged my way south, refusing to pass up a solid cloud giant lead just because the neighborhood felt a bit too intense. Staying behind to run Direham was left to Tisna. She threw a quick pout, but totally got it gliding over the Rose Mountains. It took roughly 5 minutes to spot a massive cloud giant fortress perched high, where these folk build their massive homes, and their architectural scale is utterly gigantic. Being subtle is definitely not a giant trait. Except their hound pets weigh a literal ton, and their hunting birds can easily hoist a full horse. Making my entrance known required a proper, thunderous dragon roar, when a sound resembling the sky tearing wide apart echoed across the mountain range, and a massive 200-meter golden dragon materialized directly above his rooftop. I bet his hunting agenda took a low-key wild plot twist right there. The vibe when you roll up on cloud giants flexing as a gold dragon is that the first interaction is low-key butter smooth. Every single time raw power and high civilization are basically cloud giant love languages. Just one single cloud giant matches an elite silver knight in sheer stats. So line up 30 of them across the fortress ramparts, and invading armies will instantly rethink every single life choice that dragged them onto that chaotic battlefield. Giant factions, because recruitment is a total marathon, not a sprint, especially when your target recruits are 30-foot-tall mountain dwellers who majorly value their independence. Yet nothing could have braced him for a real-deal gold dragon scaling up to the size of a petty mountain, casting a massive shadow that totally blocked out the sun above his house. Sure, they were noble and elegant, all right, though low-key overwhelmingly ginormous in person. His panicked brain instantly started calculating the ultimate fight-or-flight equation, only for both choices to flash back with a solid hell no with genuine curiosity. I looked over his entire setup. The griffins and dire wolves were seriously top-tier. Across human kingdoms, a massive trend of forming beast rider knight orders has been blowing up, relying heavily on organized magical creature mounts. The Alpha Kingdom could never pull this off since they are completely broke, but I'm living large enough to do it. Each cloud giant family maintains a squad of 4 or 5 griffins, alongside 6 or 7 vicious dire wolves. Gather enough families together, and I've officially secured the breeding stock for a full-blown beast cavalry force. Give it 10 solid years of breeding and intensive training, and my griffin riders and wolf cavalry will be locked into pristine combat formations stretching west of the Moselle wasteland. The Beast Mountain Range offers an endless hunting ground to keep them fed. Will you serve me? Cassius dropped straight to one knee without wasting even a single millisecond of hesitation. It would be my ultimate honor. My lord, technically speaking, Gold Dragon and Cloud Giant contracts are supposed to function as completely equal partnerships. Yet when one of those partners is a legendary dragon whose gigantic silhouette completely swallows up your fortress, the word equal kindly walks itself right out of the conversation. Chaos went with survival first and dignity second, in that exact order. Clocking in as the baby of the bunch at only 8 years old with 40-plus years left before adulthood, I was low-key running a full-on daycare service for absolute units that would soon tower over buildings, plus loads of kids before dropping a massive plot twist. This particular tribe had a legendary cloud giant mage acting as their elder. Pinpointing my innate divinity wasn't something he could manage, yet his legendary instincts screamed loud and clear that I was way more dangerous than normal. It felt like staring at a house cat, while deep down knowing it was a disguised tiger. Will you serve me? No hours spent negotiating, just hitting them with the ask. Hesitation took over the elder as I watched a mental war wage on unspooling deep behind his ancient, weary eyes. Meanwhile, his sharp brain was rapidly doing the math on whether his tribe featuring 1 legend, 3 Tier 8 warriors, and 4 Tier 8 mages could low-key hold their ground against me if things went sideways against a run-of-the-mill legendary gold dragon. After all, he's a legend too, backed by 7 Tier 8 subordinates, which is more than enough muscle to make any standard legendary dragon think twice about pushing things too far. Cloud giants are definitely no pushovers, standing tall as one of the absolute strongest giant subspecies in the entire realm. Except I am far from your average legendary gold dragon. I'm a chaotic good divine entity rocking doubled combat power, legendary elemental lords on speed dial, and the whole metallic dragon species saved right in my emergency contacts. The Elder could genuinely feel all of this on a deep gut level. Even if he couldn't put his finger on exactly what felt so off, he just knew turning me down was completely different from brushing off some ordinary legend. It felt way more like disrespecting a natural disaster that just happened to be chill enough to ask for permission first. Every single set of eyes in the tribe was locked on him, with 40-plus adult cloud giants, their partners, and their kids all waiting on their elder to make the heaviest call of his very long existence. The sharper ones in the crowd had already figured out why Cassius was standing right beside me, looking completely at home, since both of us already knew how this movie ended, and I still had a grueling cross-continental flight ahead of me back home. Standing right, there was the elder of the cloud giants, who was visibly going through the most awkward existential crisis ever. His rock-solid confidence built up over centuries of ruling as a legendary mage, backed by 7 Tier 8 subordinates, got totally shattered in the span of 30 seconds. After I showed up, refusing was his first instinct. His crushing pride was practically screaming at him to say no after all. He's basically a living legend himself, brimming with elite warriors and powerful mages under his command. He definitely isn't some cowardly kobold who drops to his knees at the first sign of trouble. So I decided to give him a little nudge, casually flashing my summon natural ally spell right then. And there the unmistakably oppressive aura of a legendary elemental lord started materializing right beside me. I didn't even bother bringing it out all the way, just letting a tiny sliver of that heavy pressure bleed through like cracking open a vault door, just to flex what's locked inside. Hey, check this out. I can literally summon legendary entities out of thin air like it's nothing, still want to sit here and negotiate. The Elder's spine made the call for him even though his brain was still desperately overthinking it. Those cloud giant mages happen to excel at crafting high-end magical gear, too, meaning I've practically inherited a brand new enchanting department. The only catch is that standard human-sized equipment looks ridiculously microscopic in their massive hands. Just picture asking a hulking giant to carefully carve intricate runes onto a bracelet that's smaller than his pinky nail still. I'm sure they'll figure it out right, as the giants were busy packing up their belongings to prep for a massive 1,000-mile relocation. A strange shift in the air made my head snap straight upward. Holy Grail, Britannia, my eyes were darting frantically across the room, searching for any red flags of an apocalypse, or some wild end times prophecy, straight out of a game choice. Thankfully, it turned out to be a massive coincidence completely unrelated to any lore I was familiar with, just a random goddess, who just happened to share a super nostalgic naming style. She mastered the new rules of the game, re-engineered her divinity through modern faith systems, and carved out her very own earthly divine realm, all because her primordial nature roots gave her the cheat code to keep a physical footprint in the mortal world. Talk about an insane resume billions of years under her belt, surviving a total cosmic universe reset, and currently running the ultimate elite night-making factory. It must have hit her senses like hearing a nostalgic childhood song echoing again after millions of years of absolute silence. Should I actually go check it out? Zero life-threatening danger. The lady is fundamentally lawful good, sure. Her paladins slaughter non-humans on battlefields with terrifyingly cheerful enthusiasm, but the goddess herself is genuinely wholesome at heart. And if this whole setup completely bombs, I've always got my ride-or-die speed dial for Bahamut, the platinum dragon god running on pure divine essence. Bahamut would literally teleport across dimensions just to flex and protect me, having a helicopter parent who's an actual deity hits different. Not gonna lie. It's not about being weak. It's just smart survival mode. The lake was stunning with glass-like crystal water, golden light reflecting everywhere, and a flawless statue of the lady gripping her iconic grail. And even gold dragons never get an invite. While I stood watching, the statue began to glow. Glancing down at that tiny plant felt like staring at all of Mother Nature, shrunk down into a mere 5 cm. The Lady of the Lake, being an OG nature spirit born directly from the wilds, could totally feel that exact same energy radiating right off me. And her radar was way more dialed in than mine ever was. From her perspective, I was just walking around giving off this faint whisper of something super ancient and foundational. A vibe she recognized from way before history was even written down. She tried tapping into divine magic to track down the source of that aura. Hearty stay in Britannia. I can hook you up as the next Night King. Power, status, wealth, Everything you could ever want, Britannia's got it locked down. Knight. King of Britannia, the absolute strongest military kingdom across the central continent. She was pitching me the crown to a whole nation full of legendary warriors, as nonchalantly as offering someone a stick of gum. There I stood right on the misty bank of the holiest lake on earth, getting personally headhunted by an immortal goddess, while my brain was doing mental gymnastics, trying to process this insane job, offer Night King Hardy supreme boss of the Grail Knights. Yet the Lady of the Lake doubled down anyway. Stay put in Britannia, and I will crown you king, given that Britannia is filthy rich, absurdly powerful and widely flexed as humanity's absolute #1 kingdom. The Grail Knight Order on its own acts like a total weapon of mass destruction. Survivors who made it out of the Orc Wars recounted their brutal charges using descriptions that sounded straight-up fake. Just one sword sweep from a single Grail Knight. So when the entire order charges in unison, their combined blade light literally blankets the whole battlefield, even the Behemoth Legion reputedly. The continent's greatest army got completely steamrolled into ground meat in mere seconds, after which these living saints would cheerfully slaughter every remaining orc left standing. The farmlands surrounding the Alpha Kingdom capital enjoyed record-breaking harvests for years afterward. The knights might have run out of nearby targets to slaughter, yet their martial enthusiasm hasn't dimmed one bit. She rocked porcelain skin and a killer silhouette. Bro, her ivory dress hugging every single curve like a master architect engineered it on a totally spiritual plane. Her bare feet floated just an inch above the turf, showcasing dainty ankles and flawless toes, which low-key sparked a hilarious memory in my head. Rival factions jokingly dubbed the Grail water none other than the goddess's foot-washing water, because she is constantly rolling barefoot everywhere. Every single Grail Knight's legendary superpower actually stems from a divine foot bath. Honestly, those knights would literally throw hands with anyone brave enough to say it to their face so naturally. This joke only floats among orcs, hushed in total secrecy behind locked doors. Her pitch included rare Britannian artifacts and dazzling, flawless gems. My inner red dragon heard free loot and instantly approved the permission slip. No hesitation. Some privileged local snobs strutted around on mixed-breed elven horses, with their noses stuck way up in the air, flexing hard on foreign kids, whose families were too broke to afford magical mounts. Elven horses are totally Britannia's signature flex. Genetically engineered war beasts that run crazy fast, never get tired, are super smart, and share a direct mental link with their riders. The stunning lady relaxing comfortably beside me inside our carriage, casual-like, offered to hook me up with purebred elven horses as a parting gift. Just like it was nothing. Insane military assets of immeasurable worth, handed over simply because she felt like being extra generous. Considering I had already turned down her marriage proposal, passed on her crown offer, and was literally about to bounce from her kingdom any second now, yet here I was shamelessly asking for breeding-ready males, so I could finally launch my own elven horse breeding project. Back crib. And zero ongoing imports, because the math was way too clutch to let basic etiquette slow me down. A gentle smile crossed her lips, showing zero offense taken. Every other VIP she ever encounters either completely worships her, fears her guts, or tries to play her, whereas I rolled up, gave a hard pass to the throne, and asked if I could cop some boy horses instead while keeping it 100% real. My 2-week stint in Britannia was winding down fast. Soon I'd be cruising home with 60 towering cloud giants, their personal griffins, a pack of dire wolves, an impressive stash of rare loot, flawless gemstones, plus an entire herd of purebred elven stallions, all secured through the timeless, draconic art of being effortlessly smooth and unapologetically bold. Not a bad haul for a diplomatic drop-in. Without a second thought, the lady handed over the stallions, fully aware of my exact master plan to breed an elite bloodline of elven mounts back home. Talk about supply chain independence. Since my inner red dragon blood totally vibes with never having to buy horses ever again once we shook on it. The lady curled right back against me inside the rocking carriage. Honestly, I'm essentially a walking meditation retreat disguised as a dragon, though I couldn't help noticing she'd chilled out quite a bit compared to our very first meetup. Gone were the days of aggressive throne offers or out-of-nowhere marriage proposals. I figure she finally realized that whatever gave me this natural divinity in the first place has got to be something ancient and terrifyingly powerful, maybe even strong enough that messing with me might pull unwanted smoke and heat from forces even a full-blown goddess. Better respect, preferably one riding a mixed-blood elven horse for irony, but free stuff is free stuff. We arrived at the Knight Academy's training grounds and walked side by side. The lady had dressed up today instead of her usual barefoot goddess look. She was wearing high heels, making her already striking figure even more eye-catching. She called me my knight as she took my arm. Watching the young knights train under blazing sun, was genuinely impressive. Thousands of talented nobles from across the world, pushing themselves through brutal drills. The bodyguards trailing us at a distance seemed like ordinary armored knights, full-plate visors down, faces hidden. The four leading the formation were Holy Domain Tier 1, full rank above Legendary. I nearly tripped. When I realized this, the rumors say the Grail Knight Order has about 100 members. Looking at these bodyguards alone, I'm now certain the real number is at least double that. Standing out amongst the practicing knights. Though shorter than the others, he was noticeably faster and carried way more power. He had already hit high-tier knight rank despite being clearly young. Some introductions are way better left unmade forever. Unaware was I that the lady had tracked my line of sight over to the boy, and her eyes lit up with what can only be described as a goddess who just stumbled upon something wildly entertaining. Whatever she had on her mind, she kept entirely to herself. Talk about ominous. Hundreds of purebred elven horses were right there. Oh my dragon god. Plus royal hippogriffs were there as well. Finding myself inside the planet's greatest cavalry breeding facility blew my mind. Magical horses, valued higher than most baronies, surrounded me completely on all sides, while a goddess casually told me to pick whatever I wanted, treating the place like a gift shop. My inner horse breeder was Loki having a spiritual awakening.